The Hive haven't been on Earth in centuries. That wizard came from the moon.
Send them home crying. You're crushing them.
Omnigul, destroy her!
More efforts like that, and we might just win this.
Welcome to another episode of Agents of the Nine, a Destiny podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tim K. Trotter, and joining me today is...
Self-made Dame, what's going on?
Cool. We are your crew for now, until/if Killbot joins us later. First off, I want to address any listeners that we still potentially have 3 weeks later after having not done a podcast in 3 weeks. First of all, apologies for not communicating really what's going on. I mean, I've said some stuff on our Twitter and our Facebook. We've had just ridiculous amount of scheduling conflicts. We lost a couple cast members. They're still alive. They're just too busy to do the show. And on that note, I want to issue out an official call to any podcast listeners or guardians out there who have Skype and want to have their opinions heard on a public Destiny forum that's not a message board or Twitter or, just another outlet. I'm more than willing to, have other new guardians on and talk. And, if it works out, of course we can get you regularly in the rotation here. For those who don't know, that's how my other podcast, Rising Tide, works. We have a large rotating cast that rotates in and out. And we didn't necessarily have that for Agents of the Nine, and it proved difficult to do shows. So moving forward, until we can get some new blood in here, basically, we probably won't put out episodes as much, but we of course appreciate your listenership, which is why I have right here 3 Red Bull codes for the Red Bull Quest in Destiny to give away, one of which I will give away right now in comparison to other episodes where you'd have to listen to 4 hours of bullshit before you got a code.
So you get it out the way here.
Yeah, so here's the first code. X as in Xena, the number 7, R as in Rambo, N as in newborn, the number 7, V as in Viagra, L as in loser, and the number 7. Once again, that is X7, R, N, 7, V, L, 7. That is our first code to give away on this episode. And stay tuned for 2 more codes scattered throughout this episode, so you still have to listen. Unless you just cut and run just now, in which case, That's okay too, I guess. Because that's the kind of person you are.
Got the code and just bounce. Like, see you later.
Yep, pretty much. One thing I wanted to get into, since we're still basically a baby podcast here is I wanted to point out where all you can find our podcast. And I'm talking out of my ass now because I didn't pull up the thing as I'm typing in the background to find out where I put that note with all of the different avenues.
Oh, crap.
How have you been, Damien?
Well, we do. People do know we're on Stitcher and Podbean and iTunes and almost any other outlet you can find a podcast. So we're all over the place.
Yes, indeed. So we have a Facebook page, facebook.com/Agents of the Nine, a Destiny podcast, and the 9 in that title is spelled out. You can connect to us or contact us through Twitter if you'd like to be on this podcast at Agents of the Nine, and that's Agents of the Nine with the number 9 at the end. Once again, that's at Agents of the Nine with the number 9 at the end. You can, of course, email us at agentsofthe9@icloud.com, and the 9 in that is spelled out. Of course, you can find our podcast in iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, and many other markets, some of which I didn't even know we were in. I was doing another podcast, and somebody said some app that they used on Android, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know my podcasts were there. But then
Might be Podcatcher.
there they are.
Podcatcher is really dope.
Yeah, might be.
Yeah.
So the very first thing I wanted to get into before we talk about this week's Festival of the Lost, Crucible changes, Trials coming back, the epic nerf that hit Hunters, and anything else that comes to our mind. I wanted to bring up this article from Kotaku.com. And I know a lot of other podcasts have, a lot of other Destiny podcasts specifically have gone over this article, some of them in detail, some of them paraphrasing. I just wanted to dive really deep into this article while also looking. It'll be a little weird because it's an audio podcast, but I have a bunch of concept art from the game, and I think I was actually on our Facebook page for Agents of the Nine. I started to extrapolate hypotheticals for where these concept arts have either occurred in Destiny already, or where they might occur, or maybe what has changed. And I think if we contrast that with this the messy true story behind the making of Destiny from Kotaku.com, I think we might be able to glean some new information or some new I don't know, I guess maybe theories about where Destiny could be heading in it's either its next DLC expansion or its next major expansion or whatever it is that Bungie is planning to do here. So I know some people who listen to podcasts don't read a lot of articles. So this will be basically verbatim looking at while also contrasting what I said here. And feel free to dive in at any point here, Damien, with any have you looked at this article, Damien?
A little bit. I've been so busy with work, dude. It's been like,
all right. Well,
it's been crazy.
Feel free to jump in with any thoughts you've got on the topic here.
Great.
So the Kotaku article reads as follows. In the summer of 2013, months before they were supposed to ship their next video game, the game developers at Bungie went into panic mode. The storied studio, best known for creating the multi-million-selling Halo series, had spent the previous 3 years working on something they hoped would be revolutionary. Destiny, as they called it, was to be a cross between a traditional shooter like Halo and a massively multiplayer game like World of Warcraft. It was going to become a cultural touchstone. The quote here is, "We want people to put Destiny universe in the same shelf that they put Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, or Star Wars," Bungie COO Pete Parsons said in an interview 2 years ago. Reports suggested that publisher Activision had committed to a 10-year deal worth $500 million to make that happen. 2 years ago, something went wrong. Destiny's writing team, led by the well-respected Bungie veteran Joseph Staton, had been working on the game for several years. they'd put together what they'd called the Supercut, a 2-hour video comprising the game's cinematics and major story beats. In July, they showed it to the studio's leadership. That's when things went off the rails. According to 6 people who worked on Destiny, senior staff at Bungie were unhappy with how the Supercut had turned out. They decided it was too campy and linear, sources say, and they quickly decided to scrap Staton's version of the story and start from scratch. In the coming weeks, the development team would devise a totally new plot, overhauling Destiny and painstakingly stitching together the version that would ultimately ship a year later. In September 2014, the seams showed. Reviewers singled out the story in particular, knocking the vague plot, thin characters, and opaque dialogue. One line unconvincingly uttered by a cold lump of person-shaped metal named The Stranger encapsulated the game's narrative problems. I don't have time to explain why I don't have time to explain. Today, as Destiny enters its 2nd year, a lot has improved. The most recent expansion, The Taken King, has levity and charm, the likes of which Destiny players hadn't seen before. But questions remain. How did such an ambitious game wind up with such a bare-bones plot? Why did Bungie seemingly change so much of the story before it shipped? And how did it ship in a state that required so much tweaking after it launched? What really happened behind the scenes of Destiny? For the past 13 months, I've been investigating the answer to those questions. To be clear, that's the writer of the Kotaku article, not myself. After conversations with over half a dozen current and former Bungie employees, all speaking anonymously because they were not authorized to talk publicly about these issues, the story that has emerged is one of a studio that was overwhelmed by a sudden reboot, a ruthless production schedule, and a number of other debilitating factors, including technical challenges of using a brand new game engine. Bungie's last Halo game, Halo Reach, had come out in 2010. The studio had been working on its next big thing at least since then. Despite that, much of Destiny as we know today wasn't actually conceived until 2013, a year before it shipped. Bungie declined to comment on this story.
Whew. Wow.
So I have a lot of reading and speaking to do here. But I'm going to bounce over and compare something that we got off of the internet here that I found through my own digging up. But it is hopefully authentic as it's branded with the Bungie watermarked concept art here. And it looks like the basis for one of the maps for the director.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one of the destinations. And the reason I say that is because it's got the the white lines going everywhere in the image. And also, if we look on our Grimoire cards under destinations on the companion app right now, any of the destinations you'll find has a certain arrangement of white diamonds that sort of give it its own, sort of pattern, almost like a dice, but they're assigned to specific planets. This one has 4 dots in a square above two dots below. And there's a line of text here in this image that says, "The blaze sits inside a nest of little worlds, still too distant to share its heel. But plainly staring out at you, a face emerges, drawn from plasma and radiation. There must be meaning to its roar. You listen hard and carefully, and sometimes a lucid melody seems to rise out of a random noise, pulling your mind into moments where it seems possible that answers are about to be revealed. Joy builds. The first hope in ages transforms you. It seems important, even critical, to tell every star from here to the black between the galaxies that you are strong again." So this is an alleged piece of concept art, or maybe even something that was in the game at some point in the director. And much like the flavor text in Destiny proper, or even the Grimoire cards, it's very verbose and vague and hints at stuff if you read deeply into it. So it's just one of those things, I guess, within this concept art of Destiny. For yourself, Damien, before I continue, also to give myself a breather and drink some fluid. In 2013, Was it 2013?
We talking about
Yeah,
when it was released, when it was revealed?
when it was revealed
E3
in the
2013.
E3 trailer,
Yep.
which I'm sure you remember.
Oh yeah.
What were your expectations for the game that you saw then? And like why did you have those expectations back in 2013?
Well, when I first saw it, and they showed what the Titan could do, because I believe it was the Titan that was the only character at that time, wouldn't say playable, but was seen visually, with the Fist of Havoc and his jumps and his shoulder charge and what he could do. So it looked like an RPG in that aspect, but I also saw, obviously it was a shooter, but I also saw, as they described it, as, hey, we're going to have something that you're going to be able to run you're going to be able, Jesus, you're going to be able to run your missions, as well as have this public event just spawn out of nowhere. You all will be able to do this public event. You could choose to, or yay or nay, and then go back to your private mission, which I thought was cool, because I had never played a game that did that on a console. Coming from PC, playing World of Warcraft, yeah, I understand that, but there's a lot of console players that never play PC, or never
Sure.
had. So to see that on a console, blew my mind, so I'm thinking, okay, this is like a shooting World of Warcraft, with an RPG element.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my expectations for it, when it came out, and it looked beautiful. Granted, that was probably pre-alpha stage, not even alpha, pre-alpha stage, because it was still a year in development before the alpha even dropped at the last E3.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I saw it, I was like, oh man, I knew instantly right there, oh, I'm getting this game when it comes out. I'm getting a PS4 for this game when it comes out. That was my expectation. It had always been at a high level. The hype with me has always had been there, even prior to last year's E3 when they announced it, the release date and the alpha. I played the alpha and the beta,
Yeah, me too.
So in the alpha, my only gripe was, like, 'cause I had a ball playing the alpha. My only gripe was, at that time, was just the controls, and that's because I was coming from Black Ops 2, and so it's much twitchier. It's a faster pace, and I'm playing as the Titan, and that probably could have been it too, because I had initially mained the Titan. It wasn't until I decided to get serious in Crucible is when I started to main a Hunter. But I had been a Titan all the way up until now. So that could have took into effect. The Titan is much slower. It's much bulkier because he's the Titan. He's the tank. So that was my only gripe then. It was the fact that, I wish these controllers were a little bit. And even with the Hunter that I main now, I go in Crucible, and it's still a little bit, no matter how high I turn that sensitivity up, he still hits that corner sometimes kind of slow. But that was my issue back then, was that I wished it was a little bit more twitchier. But we had no idea that it was going to be as repetitive as it was vanilla. We just, I just saw, okay, I'm on planet Earth. That was the only planet you could play at the time. I'm on planet Earth. They have these setup missions. I need to gain levels, and we didn't really know anything about the armor as increasing your level too at that time. So I just saw, like I said, I saw it as a World of Warcraft. Let me get my levels up, and I get better guns, get better armor to get my defense up. This is fun. I'm doing the patrol missions. I'm killing enemies, or I'm collecting stuff, or I'm scanning areas. I'm using my sparrow. I'm flying around Earth, old Russia. But the thing was, there wasn't a story.
Right.
There was nothing. But I gave that a pass.
Sweet.
Because
I mean,
of Alpha.
Yeah, and I get that. I mean, I think I've even said on the show before, my opinion of both the beta and the alpha, and especially of the initial video documentary revealing Destiny from Bungie in E3 of 2013. My thought was, oh my god, Bungie is going to do a serious Star Wars-ish Borderlands. Because I come from Borderlands, and you ask anybody who's played Borderlands, fucking Destiny is so much Borderlands. Right down to the chests that have glowing green LEDs on them, just like Borderlands.
You know what? I played Borderlands 2 for like 20 minutes, and I said, nope, not for me. Don't like it.
Well, the problem with Borderlands is, like, it's a great game, but it's not necessarily a good shooter.
Right. I think that's what it was. And it was boring to me. I was like, yeah, I think I'm done.
Yeah.
And I never went back to it.
All right, I'm going to carry on with this article. In February of 2013, Bungie invited journalists to their office in Bellevue, Washington, for the official unveiling of Destiny. Details had been trickling out in the previous months thanks to early leaks, but this was the big blowout, the event where the well-regarded studio would finally reveal what they'd been doing since releasing Reach in 2010. What they did show at the time was ambitious. They promised that Destiny would be, quote, the first shared world shooter, end quote, a game where you could seamlessly meet up with friends and strangers among the swamps of Chicago and the rings of Saturn. Over the following year, Bungie would publish trailers with equally ambitious claims. Quote, you hear shots ring out, and you look to the left, and there's your friend. Quote, said one Bungie staffer in a Destiny video. Quote, there he is, like there was no matchmaking. He just pops right in, end quote. When Destiny finally came out in September of 2014, players immediately noticed that something was off. There was no grand Star Wars caliber story. In fact, there wasn't much of a story at all. Destiny's missions were at best vague and at worst incoherent, strung together by a mess of proper nouns and hilarious dialogue, proclaims lead actor and constant companion Peter Dinklage during one early mission. Quote, the sword is close. I can feel its power. Careful, its power is dark. End quote. That's one of the game's more memorable lines. Thanks to discrepancies between Bungie's promises and the final product, rumors spread that Destiny had gone through major changes late into development. Fans went back through Bungie's old videos, pinpointing characters and missions that weren't actually in the game, like the planet Saturn, and a blue-skinned alien who was shown in one cutscene pointing a gun at the player's character. It was almost wishful thinking. Surely fans thought Bungie couldn't have intentionally released a game with a story this bad. Surely the plot was changed at the last minute. Turns out they were right. At this point in the article, there's literally a picture of taking some place in the Cosmodrome, and there's a Guardian who's dressed in Warlock gear, and then a slightly different character design for what eventually turned out to be the Queen's brother is on the Cosmodrome, and he's pointing a pistol at the Warlock. There's an actual picture because it was taken from one of the video documentaries.
You know what? It's funny because when you start off the very first mission of Destiny, and you start off in the Cosmodrome, and there's a bunch of cars piled up on the top of each other, and it looks like people were trying to get out of Russia to try to get onto something, maybe a ship, maybe whatever it was, to get out of Russia. And they never explained it in the game. Now, if you go deep into the lore of the Grimoire cards, it's explained-esque. Actually, Sir Walden does a great job at it, as well as Bife. Bife does a great job with the lore as well as too. So they go deep into that, but it's never really explained. And the first enemy that you see is the Fallen, but it's never really explained why they were the first enemy. You just, you wake up, the ghost wakes you up and say, "Hey, I've been looking for you for a while. We got to get you out of here." And you fight a couple dregs, you fight the Vandals, you fight the captains,
Mhm.
and then you get out of there and you fly to the tower. How did it know to take you to the tower? We don't know. Why the tower? We don't know, unless you read the Grimoire course. So it never really explained. And that right there. That's about a good 20 minutes of cutscenes.
It's true.
That's not there, you know. So yeah, something was definitely up with that as far as what was pulled out, why wasn't it there, and that also affects the writing because some parts can be a little bit more, even if it was a little bit more explained, then the writing part will have probably a little bit more weight of it instead of it being so vague.
Yeah, there's going to be a kicker here because you're going to find out what the original story was going to be here.
Mhm.
So, in the summer of 2013, just over a year before Destiny came out, the story got a full reboot, according to 6 people who were there. Bungie ditched everything Joe Staton and his team had written, reworking Destiny's entire structure as they scrapped plot threads, overhauled characters, and rewrote most of the dialogue. The decision was made against Staton's wishes, sources say. Destiny project lead Jason Jones and the rest of senior leadership were unhappy with the writing team's supercut, and their reaction was to scrap it all. Destiny's story went through several revisions before the reboot, but the Supercuts version revolved around the player's hunt for the Warmind Rasputin, according to 2 people familiar with the original plans. In today's Destiny, Rasputin doesn't do much, but listen to classical music in a steel bunker on Earth. But in the 2013 version, he would have starred in a more prominent role. Alien Hive would have kidnapped the machine and brought him to their Dreadnought spaceship, which was later cut from Vanilla Destiny and moved to the Taken King.
Okay.
Originally, this Hive ship would have been part of the main story. Quote, "The entire last third of the game took place on the Dreadnought, with you rescuing Rasputin," end quote, said one person who worked on the game. Fans have long wondered about the bloody Exo in one early piece of Destiny concept art. Turns out, that was Rasputin. According to a source in the original story, the player would have rescued this guy from the Hive.
Wow.
At this point in the article, which is also why I'm doing comparative stuff with the concept art here, the article has a concept art which, as anybody who's really dug into Destiny knows, pretty much every single Bungie concept art has come to pass at some point or another so far in the Destiny universe. This shows a Titan-looking Exo who has a very distinctive sort of skull robot face with blood dripping down his face and a worn shotgun to his right. And so according to this Kotaku article, that was Rasputin. What?
That's crazy.
Right? It gets better.
That's crazy.
It gets better. In the DLC, we would have learned that this Exo was actually a puppet being controlled by a Warmind, the source said. The story would have also starred a character familiar to hardcore Destiny fans, Osiris. Right? Crazy.
Wow.
Described by one source as an Obi-Wan Kenobi-like mentor living in an ancient Vex temple on Mercury. Although Osiris has yet to appear in the version of Destiny that shipped, he does have a presence thanks to a competitive multiplayer gauntlet designed in his name, the Trials of Osiris. Groups of flawless victories in Trials of Osiris gain access to the enigmatic wizard's Mercury Temple, which was salvaged from the original story and reused here. In the pre-reboot Destiny story, Osiris served as a guide for the main player. He had a robotic assistant whose model was, according to a source, scrapped and reused for yet another character who will be familiar to hardcore Destiny fans.
Brother Vance.
The Stranger.
Oh, okay.
So that's crazy. So, essentially, for listeners of this show, if you've played Trials of Osiris and you made it to the Lighthouse, you know exactly what we're talking about. If you haven't, when you go flawless 9 victories in Trials of Osiris, you go to a brand new social area that was introduced in House of Wolves, and it is a huge social area.
I'm surprised that they didn't make that the new tower.
Well, that's the thing, though, and this is my speculation here. It seems to me like that was going to be the first tower,
Right.
like the first place you go.
Yeah, because the way that it's designed, it looked like it's like vendors, and
Yep.
you have the ship where it looks like Amanda Holiday would have been at right there at the ship. You have a whole bunch of stuff going on there.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy, right? And all of those other little pockets, and probably those doorways that are walled off by the infamous blue square shield
that you can bounce off the bounceable pillow.
the bouncy shields. It seems to me, and if of course this crazy story is accurate, since Kotaku's citing 6 anonymous sources, which, in journalism isn't necessarily that credible, but I get it. If they're actually still working at Bungie, they want to protect their jobs. That makes sense, because the thing about going to the lighthouse in Mercury is that place is so big and so many nooks and crannies. Like it dwarfs the what am I thinking of? The Vestian Outpost.
Oh yeah.
Like the Vestian Outpost is cool, but the Vestian Outpost is fucking tiny.
You can see the whole Vestian Outpost from when you spawn, literally.
Yeah. Whereas the lighthouse, I mean, I've literally spent probably an entire day exploring all the nooks and crannies and different places you can go and jump and stuff.
I think it's almost about the size of the tower. Maybe a little smaller. Maybe a little, but see, that's the thing, that what we're open to, may be the size of the tower. It could be even bigger than that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Carrying on with the article here. What was the last thing I said? Oh yeah, so I guess we were going to be led by Obi-Wan Osiris and his robotic assistant, who got recycled to become the Stranger.
So do you think that's who she was talking to at Venus, and she was like, "Yes, I got him here." Okay,
maybe.
I got.
Maybe, man. Who knows? I want to point out another thing just before I carry on with the thing. We know that they've reintroduced Osiris in the story, because when you play the
is it the Titan story mission?
Yeah, the Titan. When you get your Sunbreaker, you get to hear dialogue from Osiris.
Right.
It's probably obviously new dialogue, since they're a year into Destiny now.
You know what? I've played the Hunter's story mission, obviously, and I haven't played the Warlock yet. But when I did the Titans, I think I liked the Titans a lot better than the Night Stalker story mission. It was something about the Titans Sunbreaker mission where you go to the temple on the burning shrines. They had this lore and this legendary Sunbreaker god that you have to appease or show that you're worthy to get it was really well. That was really well done. I like that one. Opposed to the Hunter one wasn't bad, but it was like you got a distress signal from K6. He said, "Go check out this Hunter." And, he just said it jokingly, like, he better not be dead. He still owes me Glimmer, And you go there, you find out he is dead, but he has the void glow in his hand. You take the void glow, and then next thing you know, all of these Vex pop spoilers I'm sorry if you haven't played the Taken King, but all these Vex pop out and you shoot them with the bow. That was cool. That was cool initially, but when I did the Sunbreaker, man, like that was very well put together. As you're throwing the hammer, you can hear the voice of the Sunbreaker Titan or Osiris, whoever it was. You never see him, but that was just a well done scene, man. It was very well put together. I like that one. Now, I haven't done the Warlock, so I don't know what the Warlock story is.
Not awesome. And the Hunter one, I mean, it was better than the Warlocks, but it wasn't that much better. The Titans got it good, though.
Yeah, the Titan one was very well put. They went all out on the Titan, this DLC.
Sure. All right,
He's the star.
carrying on for more insane nuggets from the vanilla Destiny that was. In reference to the stranger, she wasn't the only character who would be reused. At E3 2013, Bungie played a Destiny gameplay trailer that showed a slick, blue-skinned, awoken gentleman pointing a gun at the player character. Sharp-eyed players theorized that this awoken was called the Crow, based on a pre-release screenshot of a mission that doesn't actually appear in Destiny, instructing the players to help the Crow loot the Academy archive. This is taken straight from the. This is a picture here in the article, taken straight from that 2013 Bungie video documentary, and it's them showing a really early version of the companion app on an iPhone, and it's got them listed as Story Book 1, Chapter 3, and it says Gain favor with the Queen. Venus Shores of Time help the Crow loot the Academy archive. We all know what the archive is.
Right.
So yeah, that's
Well, that's interesting because now in the game you don't meet the Queen's brother until after the archives.
right. It's
You know?
crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So check it out. Here we go. The theory was correct. Sources say in Destiny's original story, the Crow would have met the players in an early mission where we'd have witnessed the standoff from the screenshot and worked with them to find Osiris. One person familiar with the original story described the Crow as a roguish and charming, not unlike Nathan Fillion's character Cade 6 in the most recent expansion. Basically, who Cade 6 is in The Taken King was the personality of the Crow. End quote, that person told me. Bungie reused the Crow's model for a new character, the Awoken Queen's brother, Prince Uldren. They reused the name in the current version of Destiny 2. The Queen's army of spies are called the Crows, and Uldren is their boss. The pre-reboot Destiny had way more of a focus on story than the actual game wound up having. Quote, story missions before the reboot always began with a communique from a character. Quote, said a source. Quote, they were 30 to 45 second cutscenes of the NPC setting up the mission context. Osiris announcing a dramatic discovery about the Vex and asking you to dig up an ancient relic on Mars, or the Crow calling for help from the middle of a firefight with the Fallen on Venus. And then every mission ended with a full cutscene, 3 to 5 minutes. End quote. Different people who saw the supercut disagreed on its quality. In an interview, one person who worked on Destiny called it terrible. Quote, it was just a confusing, highly esoteric story that just didn't make sense. End quote, that person said. Others argued otherwise. Quote, there was some very cool stuff, very powerful stuff, said one. It had strong characters. It had a beginning, middle, and an end. It unraveled and solved an entire mystery in this corner of the universe. End quote. A third person familiar with the game offered another take. The story was interesting, but the supercut didn't do it justice. Quote, well, the quality of the supercut was bad. The plot itself wasn't inherently bad, said the person. It made sense on paper. It was also constantly being edited and changed. It turned into a Frankenstein amalgamation like the rest of the game. A third person familiar with the game offered another take. The story was interesting, but the supercut didn't do it justice. Quote, while the quality of the supercut was bad, the plot itself wasn't inherently bad, said the person. It made sense on paper. It was also constantly being edited and changed. It turned into a Frankenstein amalgamation, like the rest of the game, end quote. Everyone I spoke to agreed on one point. Bungie's senior leadership, including Jason Jones, didn't like what they saw. Some in the studio took issue with the rhythm of the progression, which would have shown players all 4 main planets, Earth, the Moon, Venus, and Mars, within the first few missions of the game. Obviously, the Moon isn't technically a planet, but in the parlance of Destiny, the two are interchangeable. According to one source, Jones also told the team he wanted a less linear story, one in which the player could decide where to go at any time. That became one of Destiny's key pillars. So in July of 2013, Bungie's leadership decided to totally reboot Destiny's story. They kept much of the lore and mythology, the Traveler, the idea of guardians, enemy races like Cabal and Vex, but they overhauled Staton's entire plot, according to the people who spoke to me for this piece. Over the next few months, Jones did 2 pivotal things, sources said. He designed the interface we now know as the Director, a sleek set of maps in which missions are presented as nodes within each planet. He also organized a series of extensive meetings called Iron Bar, where he and other top creators at Bungie, like art director Chris Barrett and designer lead Luke Smith, would figure out how to cobble together a new, less linear plot for the game. The small group of developers spent the next 2 weeks sketching out a new plot and figuring out how to fit in the story missions they'd created over the past few years. In the weeks after the reboot, the Iron Bar group, along with a team of designers and producers called Blacksmith, because they'd hammer and polish the Iron Bar, came up with a new plan for Destiny. They rescoped the game, cutting out the Dreadnought and moving it to the expansion, which was then called Comet. They then changed the order in which players would progress between each planet, and they cut apart each story mission, splicing together encounters from a variety of old pieces to form the chimera that was Destiny's new campaign. Quote, the design team would have to cobble together and cut and restitch and reuse a bunch of stuff that was already built for a different thread, but now tie it together in some way that fit this amorphous, you pick which way you're going in the director's story, said one person familiar with Destiny's development. Quote, the priority was, hey, we have to make a bunch of content that we've spent millions of dollars on. We need to cobble it together in a way that is not going to break continuity. And we've got to do it quickly. Casualties of this process included characters like Osiris and Charlemagne, an artificial intelligence on Mars who was promoted in early Destiny previews but never appeared in the game. Other characters like the Crow and Osiris's assistant were rewritten and recycled, becoming respectively Prince Uldren and the Stranger. Many of the story missions that actually shipped with Destiny were stitched together from the older ones, sources said. Quote, so if we're going from point A to point Z in the course of the original pre-reboot story, they would take out section HJ because it was a really tight encounter design, and they'd put it off to the side and say, how do we get HJ in this other storyline? Said a source. It was literally like making Frankenstein. Quote, someone might say, I've got a really good encounter here, or there's this mechanism for triggering this that needs to happen. So, okay, cool, let's take a piece of A and a piece of X, and we'll tie it together. And that was done for everything. What it basically did was put an order on the planets for you to go to, Earth, Moon, Venus, Mars, and within those you've got all the missions that were there, but the missions as they shipped were actually sliced up and stitched together versions of the original story, including the cinematics. Joe Staton left the company during the Midsummer reboot. Although Bungie didn't announce his departure until September 2013, two sources say the parting was not amicable, and when I reached out to him, Staton declined to comment for this article. Although the story he directed is no longer a part of Destiny, much of his mythology remains, and even after the reboot, many of the writers Staton had hired stayed at Bungie to work on dialogue, flavor text, and what they call Grimoire cards, a large library of rich, interesting lore that's only accessible outside the game, on Bungie's website. Most of Staton's hires have since left the studio. One, Clay Carmouche, stayed at Bungie to pen the story and dialogue for The Taken King. Carmouche left Bungie shortly afterwards, and the company has hired a new slate of new writers over the past year or so. As the reboot was happening, the developers of Destiny still thought they were going to ship the game in March 2014. According to two people who were there, they'd already delayed the game from its original release window of September 2013. But in the wake of the reboot, the company leadership knew they'd need more time. While holding these development meetings, Jones and other top executives like Bungie CEO Harold Ryan went through the lengthy, complicated process of asking Activision for yet another extension. According to a source, after some negotiation, they secured a ship date of September 2014. Over the next few months, driven by Iron Bar's story changes, Bungie's developers continued building Destiny. One source said that after they got the extension, the studio's priority was to polish and perfect the gameplay. How the primary thing you did in the game, shoot guns, felt. How public spaces would function. How encounters worked. They prioritized this instead of building a strong story. Narrative took a back seat, as did the writers themselves. Quote, the writing team Joe put together was ostracized, said one person who worked in the game. The story was written without writers. End quote. Quote, the extension actually made it so we could get things to the base level of acceptability, and that's what we shipped, said another person who worked on the game. If we didn't have that extension, there's no way we could have shipped in March. Destiny came out on September 9th, 2014. Most of the development team was proud of the game, a source told me, and many were shocked to see harsh reviews, although most at Bungie had anticipated players wouldn't love the story. The team thought Destiny made up for that deficiency in many other ways. One source says they had internal surveying pegging Metacritic score at around 90 average. It turned out to be a 76. Bungie then missed out on a major bonus that source confirmed. Critics and fans did indeed love the look and feel of the game, but even beyond the lackluster story, there was much to criticize in Destiny. The random loot system, the grindiness, the bizarre leveling, and many irritating bugs and glitches. Some of the decisions Bungie had made, like randomizing legendary loot engrams so they'd occasionally drop lower-tier items, infuriated even the most devoted players. And although Bungie fixed that, along with some of Destiny's other early problems, that made a bad first impression. To early players, and even to those who stuck with the game for the long haul, playing Destiny felt like battling against the developers themselves. Right after Destiny launched, Bungie's developers started absorbing all the feedback they'd seen online. According to a source, although they didn't know they'd be taking the game over the next year, they did quickly realize they needed to change a lot, including the obscure and often frustrating leveling system. They rebooted the first DLC pack, December's 2014, The Dark Below, scant months before it was due to ship. According to two sources, one familiar with the development, says Bungie sequestered a team and had them crack out Dark Below in just 9 weeks, which may explain how insubstantial it was. In December of 2014, Diablo 3 director Josh Mosquera and a few other members of his team at Blizzard came to Bungie for a talk. According to two people who were there, the parallels were uncanny. Diablo 3 had launched a commercial success in 2012, but saw a great deal of criticism from fans thanks to randomized loot, frustrating online DRM, and a lack of endgame content. Both games shared a publisher, Activision, that thought Destiny could redeem itself in fans' eyes the way Diablo 3 eventually had after its release. Quote, they basically came in and said, look, here's our story of developing Diablo 3 and then bringing in the expansion, Reaper of Souls, said one person who was at the Blizzard talk. They were saying like, hey, random numbers are not fun. Dice rolls are not fun. You can give the illusion of randomness, but you want to weight it towards the player. The only point that you have to deliver on is that when people leave your game, because they will, when they leave your game, they need to be happy. End quote. There's more here, but there's a neat piece of concept art here that's in the article, and it's clearly on Venus, on the shores in Mars, but it shows the Vex in like an oceanfront setting, and they're like rising up out of the orange sea that we've been known to see off in the distance or close. I don't know. It's cool. Maybe we'll see another scene like that in Destiny with them rising up out of the water. They look badass, and these versions of the Vex, they're more stubby and their bodies are a lot thicker as opposed to the thinner versions that we have now.
Right.
Carrying on, people who were at the presentation say it was an extraordinarily helpful for Bungie's team. One source called it invaluable. Others said it drove some of the decisions they made for the Taken King. In previous interviews with Kotaku and other sites, director Luke Smith has talked openly about avoiding randomness and designing quests with guaranteed rewards, an approach that has served Destiny well throughout Year 2 so far. Destiny's meta-narrative has followed the same path as Diablo 3's. It had a rocky launch, then the developers found redemption. Before anyone could be redeemed, Bungie had to ship The Taken King, which had been going through its own set of development issues. Pre-production on this expansion, which was codenamed Comet, had started in late 2013. Two sources say the original plan was to release this major expansion at $60. And check this out, this is going to blow your mind. Two sources say the original plan was to include a brand new planet, Europa, as well as a new Earth area called the European Dead Zone, which itself had been pushed back from vanilla Destiny.
Wow.
They had also hoped to add a totally new feature called multiple fireteam activities, which a source described like this, quote, imagine like you are in a fire team, and we're fighting down this one path that converges with two other paths, and you get 3 fire teams all fighting together against a boss or against some sort of mobs. End quote.
What was wrong with that idea?
I guess time and pre-production problems, probably.
Wow, yo.
Fucking nuts, right?
Right.
It.
That's
Well, I
crazy.
mean, there's still time. I mean,
Well,
they
that
definitely made a lot of strides with the dark, or not the Dark Below, the Taken King.
right.
Um, so it's hopeful that all of these cut features will make it back in some
I
form.
mean, that makes sense because the pre-foundation for that now is Court of Oryx.
Right.
Easy has to be Court of Oryx, you know. And it was funny because Sunday, was it Sunday? It's Sunday, yeah. What we did was because that feature isn't in the game,
You
I
guys
was in a
you guys glitched the thing so you guys could get
we
the.
we glitched it. Yeah, it was
Well,
like
it's not
so.
necessarily glitched, but you forced it to do what should already be in the game.
Right, you know, yeah. So I was with I was with my clan. We had a 4-5 team of 3. It was another, but we were all in a party chat, right? So,
Hmm.
2 of my clan members, they had a third spot open. So what they did was they asked one of the randoms that was there in the court with them
Hmm.
to add just add one of their buddies on him so we could just leech on to him and he gives him the leader and then we just piled up. So in the end of it, it was just all 6 of us from the clan just trying to knock out the Court of Oryx because we needed the fragments for the Touch of Malice.
Sure.
So that's what we did. You know, we just leeched on a random until it got one of my clan members there. He gave my clan member the leader and he bailed because at that point we were there. I could jump on my clan buddy, and then he didn't have to be there anymore. You know, so we just added on to that. So,
Nice.
but that would have saved a whole bunch of time had that mechanic already been in the game.
All right,
Just saying.
You ready for the next mind-blowing piece?
Let's do it.
Here we go. None of that happened. In March 2014, Bungie rebooted Comet, sources say. The team ultimately decided to focus it around a single major map, the Hive ship that had been cut from Vanilla Destiny, as well as a new public space on Mars. What?
God damn.
Complete with new strikes and a new raid. So that's a new raid on Mars.
Could be coming.
That
It's still coming.
entire last Mars chunk was later cut and passed to Activision subsidiary High Moon Studios to develop for Destiny's full-sized 2016 sequel, a source said. They're helping Bungie make the game. Over the months, Bungie kept rescoping as they looked more realistically at what they could do, and the final version of The Taken King, the one that shipped last month, wound up focusing solely on the Dreadnought. Isn't that nuts?
I would have loved to see a social spot on Mars.
Yeah. I wonder what
I
it
would
would
have.
be. Like maybe like an abandoned building or an old Cabal base, maybe? Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess
or
it could have even been a Vex structure too, now that I think about it.
I would probably say the Cabal. Well, see, that's the thing. That's another mystery of Destiny. We don't know much of the Cabal at all. We do know this. The Cabal aren't well. They are that brute force, Spartan like. No pun intended.
Well, yeah,
But
they're very Roman, you know?
right, they're very Greco-Romanish, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and but we do know the reason for their nature is the fact that they fled from another planet, you know, which hence, you know, the taking king, how Oryx got a hold of them. They put out they put out that distress call to get you to Phobos.
Mm-hmm.
Something happened to the Cabal, you know, um, and it was Oryx taking over, but they were fleeing from him, you know. So we do know that much about the Cabal, but we still don't know the origin. We don't know how their culture revolves around the Destiny universe, like the Hive, you know,
Sure.
like the Fallen. You know, they have more of a hierarchy culture, you know, with the dregs being the loaders on the totem pole to the
Mm-hmm.
servitors being the high priest. Well,
No,
not the
for
high
sure.
priest, but being just about at the top of that chain. Then you do have the Archon high priest. But we don't know nothing like that with the Cabal. You know, like the Valis is more like a title to like a general or a sergeant or a captain or something, but you really don't know the history of the Cabal. I would be interested. Granted, I hate fighting them, but I still
Yeah,
want to know
I'm not a
more
fan of
about them.
fighting them either.
Yeah, that's just like, it's the worst fighting the Cabal, dude. They just shooting rockets and rockets and rockets at you. I'm like, yo.
Goddamn shields.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
So I want to diverge for a second and look at two more pieces of concept art that I have here in my list that relate to, or potentially could relate to this point in the secret history of Destiny here. The first one is a concept art piece that has a. It could be a Titan. It could be a hunter. It's got a cloak on, more like a hunter.
Okay.
And he's got some very interesting gear on, and he's in a red sandsy area, much like, Mars.
Mars.
And he's got a very interesting looking, I guess, what could assume an early version of a ghost. It's basically like a round ball with a green eye in it and some antennas coming out of it, like little ears or something. Like, it definitely looks something like way more like out of Star Wars or something.
Okay.
But in the background, not only does it show dunes, but it shows a rock wall, and in the very back distance, there is some sort of city in the background. Whether that's the city that we know of from Mars, or the other thing that's definitely a possibility is, this could be some other place on Earth, even. This could be like Dubai or someplace in the background,
Right.
which is already in a sandy area. But I mean, just think of that in the Destiny universe.
The red sands.
But going to the point of the Dreadnought being the focus, because apparently all the Mars stuff was, according to this article, cut for next year's supposedly big numbered sequel. We have two concept art pieces, both of which are in Destiny today in the Taken King. The first one is clearly in an early version of the Dreadnought that shows all of the hanging crypts, which everyone will remember either jumping on those hanging, swinging crypts in the King's Fall raid, or there's a very memorable sequence of largeness and scale right before you're about to go into the Sunless Cell strike on the Dreadnought. And it's interesting looking at this image and looking at the final product in game, because the concept art here, first of all, has a solid bridge versus that round hanging bridge or curved hanging bridge. You know the one I'm talking about.
Right.
It has a lot more blue light and stuff, like almost like there's like a large row of lights that are lighting this, and like the orange is a lot more fiery, and it's generally just better lit, and it shows just hundreds of these hanging things. Whereas in the final game, it's a little more muted. Last piece of concept art I want to bring up in reference to the Dreadnought is there's a concept art piece of the Rings of Saturn and of a ship. Not sure what kind of ship here. It could be the early design for the Hive Dreadnought, or it could be one of the Cabal ships. Either way, this particular ship hasn't appeared anywhere else in Destiny yet, but it's basically a rectangle-shaped ship with a big front boxy end and then two large tubes coming out the back. But it's notable because A, you can see the rings of Saturn around it, and also that it's destroyed, or it's parked dead stop, basically right where the Dreadnought would be in the Taken King. So it's interesting that stuff existed so far in there. So getting back to the article here. It's not uncommon for a game's scope to reduce during development, but Bungie had a unique problem. People who worked on this project say that one of Bungie's fundamental issues over the past few years has been the game's engine, which the studio built from scratch alongside Destiny. 4 sources pointed to Destiny's technology, the tools they use to design levels, render graphics, and create content, as an inhibiting factor in the game's development. Quote, let's say a designer wants to go in and move a resource node 2 inches. They go into the editor. First, they have to load the map overnight. It takes 8 hours to input their map overnight. They get into the office in the morning. If their importer didn't fail, they open the map. It takes about 20 minutes to open. They go in and move that node 2 feet. And then they do a 15 to 20 minute compile just to do a half-second change. End quote. Ooh, that's real rough. That's real rough if that's true. Most likely, if that is true, since it's still speculative, but possibly very true based on what we actually see, possibly just a result of the rushedness that they had to do to get it all working. Right. Because the one thing that anybody who's ever glitched through a map has seen in Destiny is shit tons of unused stuff.
Just sitting there, right? And it raises a lot of questions. We're like, well, what is this here for? What is this here for? Like, I still haven't even found the secret room in the raid.
Well, and maybe some of that stuff is just there because it's like it's easier to leave it there than change it. Right. People who've worked with Destiny's tech say the company is capable of powering incredible things behind the scenes, like player matchmaking. It's also clear that Destiny is one of the best-looking video games ever made. But as a toolset for designers, sources say Destiny's engine is subpar, and creating new maps and missions at Bungie can be grueling for developers. Once Destiny launched in September 2014, Bungie's staff didn't have much time to celebrate. Over the next few months, the developers had to grind constantly. First, they had to deliver 2 DLC packs that each justified $20, and then they had to release a massive $40 expansion the following fall. They needed a live team working on constant patches and bug fixes, and they also needed to plant flags to set players up for the major changes that the Taken King would eventually bring. The grind of this process led Bungie to approach Activision with another proposition that would alter the ambitious release schedule they'd previously agreed to. They had released 2 DLC packs, The Dark Below and House of Wolves, and they had released 1 expansion, the codename Comet, that was properly titled The Taken King. What if, instead of releasing 2 more DLC packs after The Taken King, they tried something new? What if they sold cosmetic items in the tower, and then put a drip feed of free content to keep people playing in the months before Destiny 2, or whatever they would wind up calling it in the fall of 2016? Quote, there was a bet that was, hey, if we did microtransactions, I bet you we could generate enough revenue to make up for the loss of DLCs. Instead of going Destiny, DLC 1, DLC 2, Comet, DLC 1, DLC 2, they're actually just going to go big release and then incremental release. So it'll just be Destiny, Comet every year. It's basically just switching the game to an annual model. Even that process may be rough for Bungie. Destiny's contract had been leaked in 2012 as part of the messy lawsuit between EA and Activision, and it stipulates that the studio stick to this yearly plan, no matter what other extenuating factors may arise, no matter how many hours they have to devote to the game. Quote, a lot of problems that came up in Destiny 1 and that happened in the development of The Taken King are results of having an unwavering schedule and unwieldy tools, said a source. Quote, Bungie is ravenously appreciative of the people that play their games, and they listen so clearly. But because the tools are shit, and because no one can reach consensus on how to fix the game in the time that's allotted, you get a sort of I can't say it.
Paradox.
No, not paradox. Paralysis.
Okay.
End quote. It's hard not to speculate about what Destiny might have looked like with Staton's version of the story. People who worked on Destiny rave about the European Dead Zone and the raid on Mars, both of which may be added to the game in the coming months and years. But there's skepticism that the yearly schedule will really work for a studio like Bungie. Insiders worry that the studio, hampered by inadequate technology, could find itself overwhelmed by the never-ending demand for more content. All things considered, it's remarkable that Bungie was able to ship anything in late 2014, let alone build a foundation as solid as vanilla Destiny. Fans who stuck with the game were rewarded by a great expansion with The Taken King. Maybe Bungie didn't quite make a Star Wars, but the story of Destiny, more specifically the story around Destiny, turned out to be fascinating for reasons they never could have planned. And that author was of this post. Who wrote that? Where's the author? God damn it! Get out of this view.
Anonymous.
Jason Schreier of Kotaku. Amazing article, Jason Schreier.
Yeah, it was really good, really well done.
So I just want to touch on the last pieces of concept art, and then I'm fucking done for this show, and you can get it all your shit, Damien. So there's another piece of official Bungie concept art that has pink skies and like this red swampy marsh with like these weird trees. It's possible that could be another planet, or I have a theory that maybe this is some other part of the Black Garden that maybe we never got to see.
Right.
Another piece of concept art, and I find this one super interesting, is it's like around a planet or a moon, but there's clouds like in space around this planet, and there's thousands of black triangle ships with like blue beams of light coming down from them. And it's very interesting because those ships could either be Cabal, or I think more likely it's Vex, if indeed they do have spaceships.
But to say that the Vex just pop out of a cloud of smoke.
Yeah, they just come out of time. Well, actually, maybe that's the thing, though. If the clouds are there, maybe these are Vex ships that have popped out of time. That
knowing them,
I'm glad you said that right now.
They're known for taking something and making it theirs. And when I say that, like, it could be like if they have a ship, it could look like one of the Hive ships, but they've altered it to make it seem it looks more Vex-like.
Well, based on what you said just about the clouds there, and the fact that it's a triangle and everything that they do is cubed, and this has a certain sort of Vexy look to it, even in concept art, especially just because you said the clouds thing just now, I'm like, you're right, they do appear in smoke, don't they? Maybe these are ships appearing out of smoke in space because they just warped there from whatever time. That'd be rad. That's awesome. Another thing, which I think we can safely say is Europa. It looks like a Cabal structure on an ice world that has a view of other planets and moons and stuff, since Europa is a moon.
Right.
And it's got those towers that the Cabal have on Mars, as well as like this big round base, and it's sort of embedded into the ice. So it'll be really interesting to see that coming down the line.
I wouldn't mind an ice planet. That would actually be really good.
Yeah, it'd also be good for Destiny, just because we don't really have that color palette in the game. And also historically, if anybody's played the Halo games, the ice levels are always really good.
Yeah, like they are. Like imagine going through a boss mission, fighting this huge Vex, and it's a blizzard, and I mean it's just snow everywhere, and it has like that Dark Blade essence where you can barely see, but you just know he just pops out, and you got to like kill this huge Vex Minotaur or something like that. But it's just so much snow going on, you can barely see. So that'd be pretty cool. I would like that.
Another piece of concept art here is very interesting because it almost seems like they had a different intention for who would be, almost like they were going to have a king of the Fallen, and in this case they've got an actual Fallen captain guy, except he's clad in this silver armor, and he's sitting on the Queen's throne with the red banners around here, and he's holding up, remember that round ghost, or at least what I thought was a ghost mentioned earlier. He's holding up a round thing that looks a lot like that ghost.
Right.
And then there's another image of his helmet, and he has this like really shiny silver helmet with like this Y-shaped thing on front, and he's got instead of red eyes like the Fallen have, he has like these 4 white piercing eyes, and he's got like this fur coat around him.
Now, was this pre-vanilla? This is pre-concept art?
This is pre-vanilla.
Now, that could have been the kill that the Queen slayed.
Ooh, that's a good point too.
If he's sitting on the queen's throne,
Yeah,
that could have been the one.
that's true. That's true. It could be.
Yeah, and that's how she obtained it, because they say she slayed
Yeah.
a Kale, but we never seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how she became the queen of the house of was it the House of Kings or the House of Judge? I can't remember which house it
Might have been
was.
Kings. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Something like that. I remember it in the House of Wolves expansion.
right.
Another concept art piece here. I might have talked about it on other podcasts, but I think this one is most closely linked to Comet, or at least what would be the Taken King. We see a hunter in a foresty jungle environment, and there are big hulking creatures that almost look like maybe early versions of the Cabal, followed by what looks like a fallen vandal with no legs but is floating. But the thing
Okay.
that's interesting about it is all of them have like glowing out of their sockets and different parts of their body glowing green. And as we all know, glowing green is hive. But the thing about that in this concept art is that they're kind of smoky looking, like the Taken tend to be. So it's possible that
Right.
maybe this is early concept art for the Taken, or also, or it could actually be an entirely new race. We don't even know. But most likely, based on the article we just read you, it's most likely that. Now, the next two and the final two pieces I want to get into. One is this concept art over an Earth-looking planet, and there's this. I don't even know how to describe it, really. Like, it's this insanely high-tech looking, almost looks like a Suros-designed warship.
Mm.
And it's got like insane like lines, and it's got like the red and white, and there's other ships around it, but like it's almost like a Suros designed warship. It reminds me a little bit of what was that ship called in Wall-E, the Axiom, almost a little bit like that. Like it's so goddamn big, but the back end sort of comes apart almost like it's like the ship it's breathing, or like is like alive with like the type of technology, not like it's like a living ship, but like the Transformers and Michael Bay, like it's doing something insane looking
Right.
like that. I find that incredibly fascinating. Who knows where that fits, or if we'll ever see something like that.
Well, I think the way that they're going with it is really, really cool. They're using or recycling what was in pre-story before it got scrapped, and they're reincorporating it through the DLC. So, like the high ship that was supposed to be the ship that you rescue Rasputin, now they recycled it. Now it's Oryx's Dreadnought, and it's this huge public space. Well, not public space, but this huge patrol area that you can go through.
That's true.
So they're reincorporating their stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if they bring it back some way, somehow.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to have a patrol area on like a Suros warship or something.
Yeah, I would definitely be down for that.
That would be crazy.
Definitely.
But the final image, and some of our listeners have probably seen this already, is this incredible concept art piece of, well, it's either Earth or another planet, but there's lots of ships, and they are attacking what appears to be a traveler or another traveler. And this traveler is split in half down the middle with this blinding white and yellow light coming from the center. But pieces of this traveler are its ball are broken, essentially, and like pieces of it are falling off, and you can sort of see the inner of a traveler potentially. I say it's a traveler because it's a big white sphere ship, and the only thing that's sphere shaped in Destiny is the traveler.
Right.
Also because it looks exactly like the Traveler. But it's interesting because even though it's split like it's split down the middle like a like a toy capsule coming apart, and this light's coming out, but it's interesting because there's actually two balls, like those Russian stacking dolls. There's a smaller ball on the inside
Malinka.
that even looks more high tech than the ball on the outside, almost like it's a shell protecting a smaller Traveler. I mean, you could speculate for hours on this concept art alone, but like my theory is that maybe this Golden War or whatever, when the Traveler came, it had a shell, and its smaller shell is the part that survived and is why it's dead. Just hovering there above the last city.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Like that's as far as it could get to. Whatever its motivations, or if it isn't it, or has motivations, or
right. The motives of it. Yeah, I can see that. I would. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
But yeah, that's what I have, man. Alrighty, dude. Do you want to talk about your stuff?
Yeah. So just to side shift a little bit. I guess. I mean, do you want to get well? So we haven't really played the hard mode, ready to really dive into it that much. I got to the War Priest. I thought it would be a little bit more than what it was, as far as atmosphere of it. I really thought you would be able to go. I really thought like after the daughters, you would go down to another part of the ship because there's a whole door that's down past Oryx where Oryx comes up.
Yeah. The thing that I mentioned.
Right. I thought you'd be able to go down to that door and then you fight something else. And then it's Oryx in a whole nother room and a whole nother approach, a whole nother style of how.
Hold on. I want to stop you right there because I always forget and have to add this later. Okay. Another Red Bull code. Since I told people there's going to be 3 in this damn podcast. So this is our second Red Bull code. Here it is. K as in Killbot, who's not here right now. The number 4. M as in Mulligan. The number 7. K as in Killbot again. The number 3. R as in Revenge. And the number 4. Once again, that is K4M7. K3R4. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. All right, carry on.
There you go. But yeah, I thought it would have been something like that. Like you go and you go past the daughters, you go down to another part of the ship, you fight whatever, a mini boss, and then you fight Oryx. And the way you fight Oryx is totally different than how you fight him in the normal way. You approach him different. You have to re-strategize and re-figure out how do we take down Oryx. Because now he's in a different atmosphere. There may be different mechanics. Mm-hmm. What do we do? I thought the raid would have gave me that much. It's basically harder ads, and it's really not tough until you get to the War Priest, because the War Priest does a little bit more than what he does in normal. He shoots out, those tracking art pulses that I don't know if it's hobgoblins that shoots it. Yeah, it's the hobgoblins that shoots it, because the Taken Bandos have become the regular hobgoblins with that straight line wire solar rifle that they shoot you with. So he does shoot those 3 little orbs, those tracking orbs that the Taken hobgoblins shoot. He seems like he's more target persistent, because when I do the raid, I always control the middle and the War Priest. So I'm used to it. I know how to duck and dodge, especially with that shade step. That thing works wonders. I've ducked death plenty of times using that maneuver. So I'm used to it, but it seems like in hard mode, he targets the middle a little bit more than the left and the right. But yeah, he's just a little bit more, but he's manageable. I haven't fought Golgoroth, so I can't really tell you about it, but I did see the stream on Planet Destiny as they were going against Oryx, and there's just more spawns of ads and more stuff you have to take into consideration as far as ad duty and ad control. But it's really, the mechanics are no different. I mean, somewhat I get it. You don't want to really confuse the gamers, and the hardcore players, they're only like the top 2%, maybe top 3% of the hardcore players that really play this game a lot. You want to still keep it friendly for the casuals or for the player that just doesn't have that much time to invest into Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that, but just give me something a little bit more. I thought it would have been a little bit more, especially if you said we worked on the hard mode first and then we reverted to the normal. So I'm thinking, oh, it's definitely a lot more in the hard mode of the raid, So, but that's kind of my take on the hard mode raid. I mean, it's still a fun raid. I like doing King's Fall. I will put it up there with Vault of Glass, But granted, Crota's End wasn't a rush job.
Sure.
We said it earlier. They only had
apparently even more so than anybody knew, if the article we went through on the show is to be believed.
Right. And granted, from September to December, hell, that's only 3 months. There's nowhere near enough time to do a solid raid. So
well, what was the thing? What was the thing in the article? 9 weeks.
9 weeks. So that's under two. That's a little over 2 weeks. That's two. I'm sorry, a little under 2 months. That's 2 months and a week.
I mean, if that really was the timeline that they had to work with, I got to hand it to Bungie for literally pulling it out of their ass, though. Because although most major Destiny players consider Crota's End raid, a big strike. The fact that they pulled that out in that amount of time is impressive.
And that would explain why it was so buggy and so glitchy.
It's true. It was super buggy.
Oh my gosh, it was ridiculous. In hard mode, that was even worse than normal Crota. So, and within 9 weeks they got 2 weapon sets out of that. They got they put together a half decent raid, because granted, getting through that abyss was really difficult if you didn't have just trying to figure it out. It got to a point where you did make it to 32. You had the don't touch me's. It became very easy. You can solo the shit. So I used to casually just see, okay, let me see if I can get my 3rd Gallahorn from the Death Singer, and I would solo all the way to the Death Singer. I was soloed all the way to Crota. Literally,
that's probably why it was soloable in the first place. Was because they just didn't have time to play test it, basically.
Right.
Like they had enough time to make it and make sure it worked, more or less.
It was literally just making it and just putting it out in the wild and say, well, we hope for the best, But yeah, with 9 weeks, that's definitely not enough time. To develop not even a half decent DLC in 9 weeks. That's insane. But
yeah,
I commemorate them too for what they came up with in that short span of time. But yeah, that was in the end of it all. That's my thing about King's Fall. Now, Iron Banner has just passed. So if anybody have participated. Did you play Iron Banner, Tim? I know you had messaged me one day last week and said you wanted to jump on and run some. I think we were either raiding or I might have been just about to get off. Oh, I might have been getting ready to work on my Titan.
I mean, for the record, I'm not an Iron Banner person. However, I am a Trials of Osiris person. Iron Banner does have a bunch of new gear, which, as a Trials of Osiris person, looks appetizing to me, since we don't know what's happening in the Trials of Osiris weapons. I mean, we have the data mine data, but that could not be accurate, as has been proven pretty not accurate as of late. So I played maybe like an hour or two of Iron Banner last week.
Right.
But then when Thursday came, I think it was you who were like, dude, did you see this video about how hunters can infinitely shadow shot?
Oh my gosh.
And I was just like, oh my God, that breaks trials, you know? And on the one
Completely.
hand, while I knew it broke trials, I was still looking forward to trials. And then the Bungie update dropped and it was like, yeah. So we have to nerf that. And there's
Yeah.
going to be a hot patch and nobody's going to like it. And trials is on hiatus until we can fix it.
Well, I had texted you and I said, I hope to God Bungie does something before trials, because it is no way. And I consider myself a very decent Crucible player.
Sure.
You know, I'm in the top 10%,
Yeah.
above the top 10%.
That's,
you know,
that's way above decent, Damien.
Right.
It's way the fuck above.
So, there was no way, and I mean a hunter, and we ran it through the raid. You know, that was ridiculous. How I should not have been able to shoot that many bows at will like that. And I was like, there's no way I'm going in trials with this. No way.
Right.
No, that's a game breaker, you know. So I'm glad that they did fix it, because it was no way they could have launched trials with that going on. How could you have missed that though? That's the craziest thing.
Well,
Like,
I think given the article that we started off the podcast with, I think that's how you fucking miss that.
Yeah.
You're under the gun so much that you have to cut playable spaces and raids on Mars. You know?
Right. That's true. But yeah, so that came to a head, but I'm glad that Bungie, it sucks because Trials isn't going to happen until this weekend, which I plan to stream some content on that Battle for the Lighthouse. Be on the lookout for that. But I'm glad that
my problem with that, and anybody's listening to this podcast and is like, you traitor, Tim. My problem with Trials coming back this week instead of last week is like, I have Halo 5 waiting for me as soon as I get done with this podcast.
Right.
And it's like, is Trials gonna be enough, along with my Destiny addiction, to pull me away from my Halo addiction, which Bungie gave to me first and has many years on? Granted, you know, Halo 5 is not Bungie, but I played the first two missions of Halo 5, and so far it's definitely not crap, which is great. Right. And I'm hearing from everybody online that their servers are rock solid for their multiplayer, because Halo 5 has something, basically what we were talking about earlier, in multiple fire teams converging on big mobs and bosses. Halo 5 has war zones, which is essentially parts of Destiny meet Halo meet a little bit of a MOBA, because it's fucking 24 players in Halo, which is the largest ever, with against AI, both Covenant and Promethean, with bosses that have health bars just like Destiny. And at least while the match is going, I don't know how long it is. I've not played it yet. You know, as of this podcast recording, Halo came out today. So I played way late last night. But it's like Halo 5 has things that as a Destiny player I want in Destiny. And so it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I think for Xbox people, and particularly Destiny players on Xbox, I think Halo 5 is totally going to cut into Destiny. At the very least for a month or so.
Yeah, I give it 3 weeks.
You know?
I give it 3 weeks.
So it's really funny, because we're at this crossroad where if, you know, the Kotaku article is to be believed, we're going to get drip feed content each week, which, to their credit so far, there has been something new and exciting in Destiny every week so far. Whether it's a special gun, or whether it's this Festival of the Lost, which is happening right
Right.
now. So far, there has been something new every week.
Well, I'm pretty sure Bungie knows what's in store for the next coming weeks because
Hold on.
this is
Cut for a second. Can you carry on for a second? I'm really sorry. I have to fucking use the bathroom again.
so good.
Good God.
It's so
I should have
good.
never fucking had that fucking thing.
Our
Can you
van.
just carry on and talk about your stuff, and I'll just join back as fast as I can?
Right.
I know, super
Oh.
weird talking by yourself, but
No, it's all good. It's all good.
I want to get through this because I know it's midnight for you, and I don't want to keep you up.
What time is it? Minute? Oh shit! Yeah, I gotta give it like 7,
Fuck.
6.5 hours. All right.
Sorry, dude.
No, it's all good.
All right, just keep talking. I'll be back as fast as I can, and we'll just wrap up, okay?
Got you. Cool.
Right.
So, yeah. So that's. I mean, granted, Destiny will be a lot more. Well, Bungie will be a lot more attentive to what's going on within the next few months. You know, because you have a whole lot going on. Bungie knows Halo is out. Bungie knows in the next couple weeks, Fallout 4 will be out. Bungie knows a week after that, Call of Duty will be out. And at that same time, Star Wars Battlefront will be out. So those are 4 major franchise games that Bungie knows is over the horizon. So I do believe that the pressure is on, not just from Trials, but to keep players engulfed into their ecosystem. Yes, you're going to get the hardcore players within Destiny, the players that stream, the players that put in so many hours into this game, grinding, whether it's on the PvE aspect of it, grinding, trying to get that last piece of armor they need to go into the hard mode raid, or just max out their character as far as light level wise, or you might have the hardcore PvP players that's the competitive players streaming their competitiveness, going through trials. So yes, they're going to keep those players, but the pressure is going to be on to keep those casual gamers that just don't have the time to put in like the hardcore can, and that's going to be very interesting to look at, especially with all 4 of those across the board. You know, once you get to the end of the PvE content, in the end game, the only thing left, especially if you only have one character, you know, if you're not rotating between 3 different guardians, you only have one guardian. The only thing after that would be the PvP to go to, you know, and so it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, I think Destiny will be all right for the next coming months. Bungie just going to have to be. They have to find creative ways. Now the time gap within that, as far as how they cut their missions on and off, time gate. Excuse me, not time gap. I'm sorry. So I think that's very interesting. It's kind of like a double-edged blade. I think it's very interesting and different to keep players engulfed when you log into your system and you see, oh, hey, this mission has popped up. Let me go and do this mission. You know, I think that's different, and I think that can definitely bring a different aspect to Destiny. But the double-edged blade of that is that people who work all the time suffer from that. You know, so I mean, granted, I think that is a very interesting way to keep players engulfed.
Yeah,
especially in a game, you know. So, but it's going to be interesting, you know. Like I said, it's 4 big games coming across. Bungie has to know what's going on. You know, you have Halo that's out now.
Mm-hmm.
You have like I said, a week after that, you have Fallout 4, and I'm repeating what I said earlier, but granted, you have Halo's coming out now. You have Fallout 4 that's coming out next week or a week after that. You have Call of Duty that's coming out the week after that, and at the same day, Star Wars Battlefront. Dude, that is 4 huge franchises.
And each franchise is a piece of the Destiny pie. You have Halo,
right,
which is, you know, the closest thing to Destiny in terms of mechanics.
right.
Halo 5 is very different, by the way, but it's still the closest thing mechanically, shooting wise, to Destiny is their previous love child. You of course have these big cooperative battles in a universe that people will argue they love more with Star Wars because it's fucking Star Wars, you know? And you have the biggest name in first-person shooting, which is Call of Duty. Granted, I want to point something out that Call of Duty, despite having revitalized the franchise with last year's Future Warfare, it didn't seem to impact Destiny's player base as much because I think Destiny's player base, they want that RPG-ness. But going to the RPG-ness and backing up what Damien said, they'll have, like, if you're a first-person shooter and you're really into RPGs and stuff, then you have Fallout, and Fallout is, it's going to be big game. No, there's no question. There's no question that game is going to be fucking huge and probably extremely amazing because it's Bethesda, and it's a true Bethesda game, not an Obsidian spinoff or whatever. Like Vegas. I didn't play that. I heard it was good, but the point is that their track record at this point just keeps getting better and better.
They don't miss.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't
and if
miss.
they do, there's so much fucking content in that game, nobody cares.
Right. You would never know. That's the thing. You would never know. But
it's like their game engine was broken forever because you couldn't go up a ladder without a loading screen. What?
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah. That was on, what, that 2? Fallout 2? Maybe Fallout. My favorite is New Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite. I think that might be one of the best RPG games I played since KOTOR.
Right.
It was very well put together. My only gripe is the fact that to get from point A to point B, you literally had to run across. And I was like, there's no other way to get across through this desert. Jesus, Christmas, please help me. Other than that, that was a very well put together game, which caused me to be hyped for 4.
Right.
And to me, Bethesda, I put them on the order of, and I text you this early. I put this on the order of Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog cannot miss with me. They can't do any wrong as far as finished product. Dude, they get it right. They get it right every single time,
Yeah, going from Jak and Daxter, in my opinion, let's see, what did they have? I think they had a racing game in there too. So that's 4 on the PS2. And then you have the 3 Nathan Drake game, or the Uncharted games, plus The Last of Us. That's 8 games in a row that are just immaculate.
Yeah. And from that was the pivot. That was the pivot from Uncharted to Uncharted 2. Mm-hmm. That's when Naughty Dog just turned it on and became it was almost like they became a new developer. To see, I never will forget. I've never looked at a game off the first 30 seconds.
Oh, he's hitting his hands. He's serious, folks.
I'm serious about this one. When they unveiled that at the E3 13 and they showed that gameplay, The Last of Us, I knew right then and there. I said, this is going to be Game of the Year. This is Game of the Year. It was no game that they showed, period, that had did anything like that on that level. That was, I had never seen anything like that. And when I saw that, I said, this is going to be Game of the Year. I can't think of another game that can compete with this game when it's going to launch. This is going to be Game of the Year, and you had no idea the storyline was going to be that good. I looked at that just off of pure mechanics. That wasn't even counting the storyline. That was just off of gameplay mechanics and how Ellie interacted with Joel and how Joel interacted with Ellie, and they just get it right. And so to tie it back in with Bethesda being on that level of Naughty Dog, the pressure's on for Bungie because I'm getting Fallout 4 and I'm playing Fallout 4
And I'm playing Halo 5.
You know, yeah. I'm going to play those games a lot. I plan on getting. I'm not getting Call of Duty, but I plan on getting Star Wars Battlefront.
Yeah, I'm gonna get
So
that
now
too. The beta convinced me. Did you play it?
I didn't get a chance to play the beta, but I'm hyped for that game.
It's good. Everything is good except for the vehicles. Vehicles controls are fucking the most
Is it like Battlefield?
garbageous piece of shit I have ever played in a game in a long
Oh
time.
man,
It's a beta, so I'm
really?
sure people complained about it.
Because my whole thing about it, I just want to get in the X-wing and just shoot stuff in the air. That's what I want to do. That's
Yeah,
what I
in the
want to do.
beta, I saw everybody suiciding, probably because they couldn't figure out how to fly correctly
Wow.
or shoot targets. I played it with Killbot, and like we figured it out. But the problem is the controls are overly complicated to fly, like overly complicated to fly, and it's like, what are you doing, Dice?
Oh, come on,
Like it's
man.
fucking Star Wars. Like this is gonna be like fucking 6-year-olds and 12-year-olds and stuff are gonna try and play this game.
It should be R2 to take off. You push the left control, stick
Well,
down
it's not
to
even a
tilt.
takeoff. Like when you get in the vehicles, you pick up a token on the field, and
Uh-huh.
then you just spawn in the air in a vehicle that corresponds to the token.
Oh. Mm.
That's how that works.
I don't know how I feel about that. But okay.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that either. But at the same time, though, like the tokens are randomized on the field, and it allows everybody to get in a vehicle
Okay.
if they see the token. Because the battles are big. They're like, what is it, 24 versus 24 or something? I don't know. It's big.
Something obscene.
It's battlefield big.
Right.
But the good part about that is I've never seen anything that looks as close to playing a live Star Wars film as this ever. Like I was running down through the ice halls in Hoth, and I was like, "Holy fuck! This is the ice hall from Hoth," in
Wow.
the Rebel base. Like it looks photoreal.
Oh,
Like its
wow.
graphics are incredible, and the first person shooting and the light tweaking to your loadouts is really fun. I had a lot of fun with it. But yeah, those vehicle controls. Oh god.
So hopefully they fix that.
I'm sure they got bad feedback on that, and they're fixing the shit out of it.
They have to. They
Um,
have to.
yeah, we'll see.
Well, yeah, I'm planning on getting that. So that's two big games I'm planning on getting. That's going to pull me away from Destiny.
Yeah, it's true.
So the pressure's on.
Yeah, and in another line of truth here, in terms of being pulled away from Destiny, even though when we started this podcast, we of course started in the heat of the Taken King. Or no, we started a little bit before, didn't we? No, we started right as
Might
the
have
Taken
been
King.
at the Taken King. Yeah, because
Yeah.
we did a stream the day one, the night of.
That's right. But the reason Buzz isn't on the podcast anymore is there's a certain fatigue of Destiny going around with the more hardcore players, like the people you're listening to right now. That's hitting us, because the Taken King was incredible and has so much content. And yes, on a weekly basis so far, Bungie has provided something new and interesting to do every week. But it's holiday season, and it's so many good games coming out. And Buzz's interest is waning in Destiny and doing the podcast, which is why he's not here. Killbot's interest is waning in Destiny too, and he's top 1% of Crucible, He still wants to do the podcast, by the way, but we're still working out scheduling, and we lost a couple people. And then as far as Bjorn definitely wants to do the podcast, but he's busy renovating a house, and that takes precedence.
That's a challenge.
So yeah, it's interesting times, and the last thing that I want to touch on here before we end off on this episode of Agents of the Nine is this week, as of yesterday, the 26th of October, Bungie introduced the Festival of the Lost, which is this cool new Destiny-wide large-scale holiday event that takes place from the 26th to the 9th of November. So don't worry, you have past the 31st of October to complete, but it's a Halloween-themed event. And you'll see a thing pop up on your screen when you log into Destiny, Festival of the Lost. and it's the tower is all decorated in Halloween stuff with like purple candles, and there's like a floating ghost in the sky. There's howling wolves in the background, and there's spooky music and like sort of quirky Ghostbustery type music going on in the tower right now.
Right.
But there's like a ton of, it's not huge stuff, but it's like little stuff that you can do. There's 3 quest lines that you can get that, as odd as it sounds coming out of my mouth talking about Destiny and everything that we've gone over, how much struggle they've had, you go to each tower vendor collecting candy. Literal Destiny candy that has
Trick or
like
treat.
obscene things from them. And you get things from them like paper scraps, paper glue, salty engrams, sugary engrams, sour engrams, Flight of the Shadows, which they had last year. You get apparently a tiny box of raisins, Festival of the Lost Candy, Glimmer Chew, Void Fizz, and Chocolate Strange Coins, along with fruit motes.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't make any of that stuff up. It's all in Destiny happening right now.
I still have my jack-o'-lanterns.
Yeah, I did too. I saved it because I wanted to do it. I wanted to put it on for the next raid, and I did.
Yeah.
When I was fighting Oryx, I had the Jackal-Light and I had the Flight of Shadows on. But yeah.
We'll pull mine out the vault. Let's see what it does.
So other things that are happening in the tower right now. First of all, you can, in the Eververse Trading Co., for silver, unfortunately, you can get a Treasures of the Lost mystery bag in 1, 3, or 6-pack variety. And they basically have randomized contents of those aforementioned candies that you get, including a guaranteed random legendary mask. And so that's another thing that they introduced this week is they have masks now. So there's a total of, counting them up here, I'm looking at images. They have a total of 14 masks to collect. Now, masks are interesting because, on the one hand, nobody's ever heard of the masks in Destiny. They replace your helm, and they go in your helm gear slot, but they have literally no stats attached to them.
I was going to ask, do they have attributes or stats?
Yeah, no, they don't got any of that stuff. And they are Destiny Universe sort of paper mache versions of, they have one of, you can dress up as the Traveler, Atheon, Crota, Oryx, Petravenge. That's
pretty funny. I think I would do Atheon.
Yeah. They have one for Varkus's weird eye glowing thing that he talks to you from in the whatchamacallit?
Prison of Elders?
Yeah, I couldn't think of it. Yeah. They got one for Skolas, they have a Speaker mask, they have an Eris Morn mask, they have a Cryptarch mask, they have one for each of the engrams, so you can go rare, legendary, exotic, whatever. They have a Zur mask. They have a flaming skull mask, which is actually animated on fire and looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I did see that one.
They have a tiger mask. So you can collect all of those masks. The masks come in rare and legendary varieties. The rare masks, unfortunately, expire in a week after you've gotten them. But if you get paper glue, you can apply that to one of your rare masks to turn it into a legendary mask, which you can keep forever. So that's pretty cool. Also, like I said, you can just straight up buy a randomized legendary mask from the Eververse. Like I said, you get candy satchels of 1, 3, or 6 for various numbers of silver. Speaking of Eververse, there are 3 brand new emotes. And they're basically all dances. They have the Boo emote, which is basically the Guardian covering his eyes and then, sort of like scaring and like putting his hands out and he sort of shakes his head like, boo, sort of thing. They have the Monster Dance, which is sort of this monster-y dance. I can't remember what it looks like. But they have, and most importantly, they have the Zombie Dance, which even though it's called the Zombie Dance, is 100% the dance from Michael Jackson when he's
The
dancing with
Thriller.
zombies. Like, and
The
it's
Thriller
the
dance.
entire dance. Like, it's not a short 30-second thing. Like, it goes on for minutes.
Oh man,
It's incredible.
I
Unfortunately,
might get that. How much is that?
it's a pretty silver penny. The Boo is 300 silver. The Monster Dance is 500 silver. For those who don't know, 500 silver equates to $5. And the Zombie Dance is 700 silver. So unfortunately, you'll have to buy
$7.
a
Wow.
$10 pack to get 700
Right.
silver. I myself, I resisted entirely this whole silver Eververse thing, but I ponied up $20 to just get a bunch of silver, and I bought the Zombie Dance because it is the coolest fucking thing
Well,
I've ever seen in Destiny.
I bought 2 emojis with
Yeah.
the silver. So I kicked off with the $5 pack, and I bought I didn't get the Carlton dance, but I did get I got the sorrow, because that's the emote I want to use when we get to the lighthouse, because it's like, we've made it, we finally made it, and it's like it's the most awesome caption ever. And then I got the watch it back, where I thought that was just like the most go hardest emote I have ever seen. So excuse me, after every match that I had, and I've done like crazy stats on it, and I have one. I got to put the video up. I have one. I got the closing snipe, and it was the nail in the coffin, and I just hit the watch it back. And it's just so amazing.
Yeah,
it's so amazing.
Awesome.
But I think I might get that though. No,
Yeah,
I'll probably.
when I started dancing in the tower, and multiple people came up, and we all did it in sync. It was the awesomest thing. Like wearing Oryx's face. Like, oh my gosh, it's crazy.
And like the Thriller video.
It's crazy. So the last 2 things to cover here before we sign off. One, surprise to everybody's surprise, there's a new fucking Crucible map right now. It's out.
Yep.
It's playable. What? The new Crucible map is called Cathedral of the Dusk, and according to Bungie's tweet, the Cathedral of Dusk is a, quotes, mostly permanent addition to the Crucible, and it takes place on the Dreadnought in an area that's basically similar to the Crota, or not the Crota, damn it, the Oryx fighting area in the Regicide mission. So it's a little more Kingsley, as it were.
That's a small map. That's like Nuketown.
Well,
small.
It's not like the exact area. Like it's a map. I've only seen it in videos because I haven't had a chance to play it in Crucible. So I can't tell you the size of it and stuff. And like I'm watching a video now and I still can't tell the size of it. So that's new and is quite surprising since Crucible map is, kind of a big deal. And then the last thing is these quests that you can do, which help you apparently fill your bag. And you start this quest from Eva. You start these quests from Eva Levante, the shader chick. Just so everybody knows, because I was confused at first when I dropped in the tower, and I was like, "Where the fuck do I start this quest at?" But these quests are hilarious, I want to say. So, like, some of the things are like Crucible sword kills as wearing Crota mask, trip, air quotes, off the tower as Atheon. What? That's like a thing in the game because we used to cheese Atheon.
All right.
Court of Oryx as a traveler, Heroic Strike as the speaker. Loot engrams as Cryptarch. So
wow.
It's funny. Destiny or Bungie's having a little bit of fun, and I think that's awesome.
That's funny. I actually like the trip off with the Atheon mask because
when I came into the tower, I saw everybody with these Atheon masks, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And they're all jumping off the tower suiciding, and I'm like, "What the hell is going on?" I was like,
you know what? I've been in one raid ever with my buddy Gabe. He actually did that. I've never seen. He was like, "Yeah, I'm going to try to cheese this."
and he got behind Atheon. I don't know how he did it, and he just threw grenades until he just fell off the cliff.
He was Warlock, right?
He might have been. I can't remember.
That's how you got to do it to cheese it. Double sun grenade, and you force him off that corner there off the left. At least before they patched it in the vanilla Destiny days.
And actually, that was the first time I ever beat Atheon.
Yeah,
he cheesed it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
Shit.
The first time we beat Atheon, the LFG group I did it with, we cheesed.
They cheesed it. Oh shit!
Oh goodness,
that was hilarious.
Well, alrighty, folks, that does it for another episode of Agents of the Nine. Sorry, we can't tell you that we'll be back next week. We're working out stuff, and we hope you'll stay with us. And we hope that we've provided a different look or an interesting look into the world of Destiny, as we know we're one of many, many Destiny podcasts out there. If you too would like to be on this Destiny podcast, feel free to tweet at us at Agents of the Nine. That's Agents of the Nine with the number 9 in the Twitter handle. Or shoot us an email, agentsofthe9@icloud.com. Agents of the Nine is spelled out, so it's Nine. I know that's confusing. We couldn't get the Twitter to be the same. Damn it, Twitter.
Damn you.
Yeah, and actually, for that matter, you can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Agents of the Nine, a Destiny podcast, and leave a comment on our page there, and I'll get back to you, and we'll try to incorporate you in the show. We basically need new blood at this point, so we hope that the one thing that I've always admired is the Destiny community is the nicest community of gamers that I've ever been a part of.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully the Guardians will heed the call. Oh yeah, we have one final Red Bull code to give out before we close out the show. The final Red Bull code, that's 3 Red Bull codes this episode. What? The last code is F as in fuck you, hard mode Oryx. The number 7, the number 3, the number 3 again. X as in extreme. H as in high as a kite. C as in Chernobyl. And the number 7. Once again, that is F733XHC7. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. 3 Red Bull codes, 1 episode. Apologize for all of the shit of us not being around and all that stuff. Can't be helped. We have lives too, and we also still want to play Destiny.
That is true. That is true.
One final address. New listeners to the show, because you're all still new listeners, right? I am a published author. I have a short science fiction book called The Citadel Arrival by Tim K. Trotter, available right now on Amazon Kindle Store and iTunes iBookstore for only $2.99. You can get a free preview download when you visit those stores, and it's a short story, only 160 to 190 pages, depending on your screen size. Again, that's $2.99 on Amazon Kindle and iTunes iBookstore. So buy a book and support this show, and you know, it's definitely got more story than vanilla Destiny.
Ew.
That's for sure. One other bit before we do sign-offs. Because it is a weekly show, no matter what, I also host a weekly show called Rising Tide, a Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Marvel, movies, TV show, comics, and more. So you can check out that podcast on a weekly basis. We just entered our 3rd season, which is fucking crazy, which means I've been doing that show for 3 years. It's insanity. So yeah, check that show out. And Damien's also on that show when he can be. So you can hear his views on the Marvel Cinematic Universe if you're so inclined as well. But other than that, I'm Tim K. Trotter, signing off, and get wrecked, Scrubby Guardians.
Yeah. Self-made Dame.
Yeah.
Now I'm signing off as well. So catch you later.
You wanna shout out your Twitch?
Oh yeah. So damn, I almost forgot.
I got your back, bro.
Yeah, appreciate that, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/I'm self-made Dame.
where I stream a lot of Destiny content. Also on my YouTube page, youtube.com/I am self-made Dame. I got a lot of videos up there. I'm trying to convert over to the stream on YouTube. Something was going on with the PS4 and YouTube app. It wouldn't allow me to do it, so I'm just still on Twitch right now. But eventually, I'm trying to go to YouTube. I'm gonna try it again and see if it works out. I'll probably, I'll probably do some test streams just on random Crucible matches. So I plan on streaming trials on YouTube.
Okay.
But yeah, so it'll be everything in like one conglomerate, my videos and my streams as well. But you can also find me there. You can also find me on Twitter, at twitter.com/I am self-made Dame. So just hit me up, follow me on Twitter or any one of those channels. Add me on PSN, self-made Dame. Yeah, we can run some Crucible. We can go through PvE or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and also if you guys want to hit myself, Tim K. Trotter, up on PSN, my handle is Linux is the Demon. As you may have heard in other podcasts, other members of the show who know me through PSN always called me Linux, and that's why, because that's my PSN handle. Oh my God, it's public. Shocker. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was our show. Hope you enjoyed.
Oh.
And we're out.
This is Dominic Armato, the voice of Guybrush Threepwood, and you're listening to a Dynamic Works production podcast.
Guardian down.
Don't do that.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey there.
Sorry, that was on me. I forgot. I got a new phone and I didn't log into Skype on this new phone, so that's probably what on Antec.
Fair enough. Oops.
What'd you say?
Sorry, I'm banging my mic around.
It's all good.
Let's see here. Why can I hear myself? What the fuck?
That's always the worst.
Must have my gain too high. Let's see here. Let's see. I can't see because it's hanging over my laptop sideways here.
It's all good.
Let's see. I'm gonna go this way. Okay, now I'm too quiet. Let's see a little more. Let's try a quarter of that. Okay, that looks all right. Oh.
So Buzz tapped out, huh?
Yeah, Buzz tapped out.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Let me see. Pretty sure we can find someone else. Destiny has over 1 million players.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna say that in the podcast and be upfront about why there hasn't been episodes, because there hasn't been people to do it. Yeah. Me and Cabal were also talking. Hello?
Yeah.
Was that you?
I'm not sure. I might have been. Because you can't multitask and be on Skype.
Yeah, no. Skype doesn't like that.
Skype is selfish.
Yeah. What new phone did you say you got?
The Galaxy S7 Edge Plus.
Was the plus mean that's the big fat size?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it should be able to handle that like a champ then.
Yeah. I thought my 5 was big when I first got that because the 3 was so small. When I'm looking at the 5, it looks like a fucking midget compared to this thing. This thing is huge. I got the gold one. It looks badass.
Oh, whatever they're calling it, gold or champagne or whatever.
Yeah, the champagne one. It looks badass.
Yeah.
Wipe that off. Yeah, I like it though so far. It's pretty good. It's really good. Smooth. I had to get it because my 5, it just couldn't keep up anymore. I tried to hold out as long as I could because I didn't want to get this phone and then the 7 comes, because the Galaxies always come out in March.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's almost November now. So I was trying to hold out, and I was like, shit, I couldn't. Like it got to the point where the apps were just too strong for the processor. Yeah. To the point where I couldn't even multitask on my phone without it freezing or locking up or something stupid. Right. So I was like, yeah, it's time. I gotta let it go. You know. So.
Yeah, that's always so dumb because like. And I know Androids have it worse than iPhones because the developers don't try because they can't, because Android's on everything, so they optimize to the
right. And Google, I don't know. I mean, I get why they did it, more money, but they made Android open license. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's why you have Motorola. Even though Google did buy Motorola but sold it. Yeah. But that's why you have like Sony running on Android, Motorola runs on Android. Anything that isn't an Apple basically runs on Android except Windows Phone. So
right.
You know, yeah, it sucks and it's even worse for Galaxies because Samsung, I guess, are still beefing with Google. So when Google drops their new OSs, like Nexus, they announced it for the Nexus obviously because that's their phone.
Sure.
But the Nexus had their release date, Motorola had their release date, Hawaii had their release date. Hell, even LG had their release date. Nobody knows when Samsung's is coming out.
Sure.
And it's because they're just at a war with each other, you know, and so it hurts. But it's a double-edged blade because the Galaxy is the leading Android phone. You know? So it's like a bad relationship that you're married to. You want to leave but can't. You know, so.
Yep. Thus goes the ever continuous tech battle.
Yeah. That's true.
Like I was looking at those new Samsung Gear watches.
Me too. I was looking at it too. I'm still iffy on it.
Because the rotating bezel. Because my previous watch, because like I have an Apple Watch, but my previous watch was like it was a Swiss Army watch that I'd had. Fuck, I probably had that for 15 years. But it had a rotating bezel on it. And it was like, man, fucking Apple should have thought of that. Like, that's a fucking smart-ass idea. Not that I don't, the crown is fine on my Apple Watch. But, like, the whole rotating bezel is, like, even more smart, I guess.
You have tech guys and not watchmakers.
It's true. And Samsung's definitely been doing it longer than most people. So knew they had to continue. It was funny, like I was reading a review of it, and I guess it is a really good watch, but they have proprietary Tizen software on it, and it's just not compatible with shit.
The first gen Samsung Gear watches were awful. They were just bad. They were glitchy. They didn't work. You know.
Did you have one or something?
No, I was reading a lot of reviews, and I guess sampled one, tried one in the stores, and it just wasn't good. It wasn't responsive enough.
Yeah, I remember like a month before Apple announced the Apple Watch, because like I really wanted a tech watch, and I'd been looking at at the time, because that was like a year ago, the Moto 360.
Right.
And I was like, it's priced pretty well, and it looks like a really decent piece of gear. And I'd seen it at Best Buy, so like I got to pick it up and hold it and stuff. And I was like, I should wait for the Apple one. Because like my headspace, and me and a videographer buddy of mine in Seattle, we were both like, all right, if Apple doesn't blow us the fuck away with their watch, we're both getting fucking Motorola 360s. And I'm glad I waited, because I think it's a better watch, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't compare the two because it's no point in me having an Apple Watch. I'm not in the ecosystem, so it would literally do me no justice.
It's true.
So I would just have a watch with apps that wouldn't correspond to nothing but just a watch. But
that's true. I mean, that's definitely an issue. But then that's the same issue for Samsung, and the only one who's open is the Android Wear watches like the Motorola. Because I heard recently that they opened up that to even work on iPhones now.
Oh, okay.
Which is pretty interesting move.
Well, they have, get this, they have something, an app, something
Are you peeing?
No, I'm running water. Running water.
I was like, it sounds.
Is that what I think it is? I'm just not going to ask anything. Continue. No, but yeah, it's like I think it's on Apple phones that Samsung did or Google. How like converting over to a Samsung from an iPhone. I'm like, wow, if that's not like a piss on somebody's grave, that's fucked up.
Yeah, definitely.
That is fucked up. But I mean, granted, it's bound to happen. Apple and Windows battled at it forever till Apple gave in, and now Apple, Macintosh, the Power Macs, they have Microsoft Word and Office on it now. So. Mm-hmm. There was a time where that would never have happened, but
and there was a time when there was never going to be an Intel Apple computer.
Right. Right. How about this though?
Times change.
Like when I got the phone, it came with Microsoft OneNote, Excel, and Word.
That's funny.
It's hilarious. So,
well, I think the thing that people always misinterpret about Microsoft is like it's in their company, Microsoft. Like, even though, especially nowadays, they do make a lot of hardware. Mm-hmm. Like they're still, software.
Right. They were primarily a software company, which is their strong point. That's why the cloud services is so good. That's why Xbox Live is the way it is. Yeah. Because they pioneered it for so long. They know better. They do it better than anybody.
Oh yeah. But you get no argument from me there, even though I love my PlayStation.
Right, me too. But it's just
Microsoft is just better at some things.
Right. But it's just that with them is trying to get that fan base of connecting the hardware with the software. Nobody's doubting that the software part. Granted though, back in the day, Windows Mobile sucked.
It was awful.
Sucked, yeah, bad. But everyone has.
I remember looking at cell phones in the mall. Because I was convinced that I was gonna. I don't even remember who made it, but you remember the blackjack phone?
Yep, I definitely do.
I was like, that looks like the phone to beat, And
that was supposed to be the Razor version of Blackberries.
Yeah,
something like that.
Razor phones.
Right. I think it was Motorola that made that phone, the blackjack. Was it? It might. I don't know.
I'd have to go. I don't know. Man, I remember. Actually, much like the Moto 360, like I was convinced I was gonna get a blackjack because I was moving on from a shitty flip phone to a cool internet phone, and then I think I was actually just saving up money to get the blackjack, and then a couple months later, out of left field, boom, iPhone, and I was like, oh well, fuck that, I'm gonna get that.
See, at the time that came out, I had already I had saved enough money, and I was gonna get a BlackBerry, but then the Sidekick 3 came out.
Yeah.
And that was like my first smartphone, but I never had.
Oh man, I remember the Sidekicks because back when the iPhone came out, my girlfriend worked at a chiropractic clinic, and she had a Sidekick, and I remember being like, I was a total dick about it. I was like, "Oh yeah, how's that Sidekick? How's it loading that web page?" And I would just.
And the thing was, it ran on its own operating. So like with T-Mobile,
Yeah.
and this might even back with it was T-Mobile at the time.
It was T-Mobile.
So everything ran on, like if you had T-Mobile, everything ran on T-Mobile's data service operating system at the time, or whether they had one or not.
Mm-hmm.
They had a semi pre-beta apps lobby that you can get games and stuff from, ringtones and stuff from. But the funny thing about the Sidekick was it ran on its own operating system. So when I first got it, I was like, oh shit, like this is kind of dope. So it had its own apps, well, not apps, but own ringtone lobby, own games lobby. You can buy certain things on the Sidekick that you couldn't get on regular phones, but the drawback was you couldn't get stuff that were on regular phones on the Sidekick.
Yeah.
So because it ran on its own operating system, it had a SD. Did it have an SD card?
Yeah.
I can't remember that. It did. Yeah, it did. It did. No, the 3 didn't. The LX did, because I had the LX after the 3. And I just ended up getting a BlackBerry after that. And then the infamous sweep under the rug, we're not even going to discuss, G1 from Google. When they Android, I'm talking Android 1.0. That might have been butterscotch or something.
You want to know a completely terribly, well, it's probably not that funny, but a true story for myself. So I was super curious about Android, and I think because I kept my original iPhone,
right?
And I had heard that there was a hack where you could put the first version of Android and run it on the original iPhone.
Right.
And I totally hacked my first iPhone and put Android on it.
Jailbroke it?
Yeah, I jailbroke it. And I had it so it could dual boot between Android and Apple. And I totally fucked up on one of the dual bootings.
Ooh.
So, I still have the phone, but it is forever permanently an Android phone. Oh shit!
it's a Google iPhone.
Yeah, Well, I think the hack at the time was called iGoogle.
Oh shit! You know what? A buddy of mine's had that because he wanted the draw the pattern on his phone, and iPhones didn't have it. So he jailbroke his iPhone just so he can have the pattern password on his phone.
Oh yeah, man! I jailbroke my phone before there was an app store. I was down with that whole thing. It was definitely really scary back in the day.
Oh yeah, if you could do it, you could have made a killing, dude. I know people used to do it for $300 to $500 a pop.
Oh Jesus, I'm not a coder. I just followed instructions on a YouTube video.
Yeah, and that was the thing. YouTube wasn't that big then.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. My God.
Yeah, so people really weren't too. When I got the G1 and it came with YouTube, it was moderately known. So when it came with YouTube already on the phone, I was like, oh shit, that was the first time I ever seen anything like that. But at that time, YouTube wasn't really big. So.
Sure.
The source of information, even though you still had search engines were starting to evolve to what they are now. Google at that time was buying up Lycos. They were trying to get Yahoo. They were buying up all of these other sites, all these other search engines, So the source of information, the quickness of it wasn't as strong as what it is now. So people, just didn't look up, how to jailbreak a phone. So if you didn't know, you're going to go to the guy that knows how to do it, or the girl who knows how to do it. And at that time, it was very rare to have a jailbroken phone. Because I know people that just made a killing. Made a killing.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
It wasn't that hard.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Shit, if I had known that, I would have jailbroken.
I know Jobs was pissed.
Oh sure.
I know he was pissed. You fucking kid.
He was pissed because he knew. A year later, They were doing their own thing.
Right.
Yep. Either way, I mean, I'd say the first version of the App Store didn't hit it right, but the second version, they nailed it. Because after the second version, I never felt a need to jailbreak.
Yeah, after I got to see the thing with I eased into, because I never had an iPhone, but I had an iPod Touch.
Yeah, so it's the same thing.
Yeah, so I would use Wi-Fi and use that as a phone, but I love that damn thing. I had like the 64 gig. I dropped like $400 on it. I didn't even care. That thing was amazing because I had the Zune too, and the Zune.
Hey, I had a Zune.
Yeah, man, I had a Zune.
I actually have a Zune HD sitting in my drawer right now below this microphone.
I'm old school. I got the big box. The big box, dude.
Yeah,
and
I had one of those too, but that Zune HD, man, it was so good.
Oh yeah. I love that thing too. But what happened was it copped out on me, so I had to get I went to the iPod. I was like, you know what, we'll get an iPod Touch.
Sure.
And I had like everything on there. I had movies. I had games.
Yeah.
I had podcasts on there before podcasting was big. Like I had video podcast. Like I had it was called Pregame, and it was on CNET, and it was this video game podcast, and it was on for like a good year. I don't know why they stopped. And this is how old it was. Before Vince Ingenito was on IGN, he was on CNET, and they used to have him on that show as a podcast member. Oh
yeah, I believe it, man. Like you're talking to the guy who grew up on Electronic Gaming Monthly and One Up.
Oh yeah.
You know,
like
I've said it a million times. Like I'm, that was my jam. That was where, I learned about podcasting and wanted to podcast and stuff from guys like Luke Smith and Garnett Lee and Adam Sessler and all that stuff. Did you ever listen to our? I know it was 1 billion hours long, but somewhere in the back end, I threw in the actual clip from when I was at, it was my first ever PAX, and I was at a live but recorded One Up Yours podcast.
Yeah.
Did you ever listen to that clip?
I think I did. I gotta go. That's at the end of the last episode, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think I did listen to it, because I know somewhere along. I finished that episode, so I'm pretty sure I listened to it. I finished that episode because I didn't even know you. It took me a second to say, you broke this into 2 parts. Because when I first listened,
I had to.
Yeah, that's a very long podcast. I didn't even know it was that long.
Well, on the one hand, it worked out good to split it into 2 because I had to do it for technical reasons. Because the podcast wouldn't output because of the length, because of the file size. Like it wouldn't. It was like, fucking nope. make it smaller or I'm not going to work.
This is like, I'm not even going to try to break this down.
Yeah, but it worked out good because like the first hour and a half was just you and Killbot on Crucible.
Right.
So.
And,
all right, we should dive into this. And,
let's get this on the road.
Hopefully fucking Killbot gets his shit together. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole reason why we're doing it on Tuesday anyway.
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
I started watching the press conference. I watched a little bit at work.
For Paris?
Yeah. Yeah, it started. They have, Gravity Rush 2.
Oh, yeah? When's that coming?
Oh, my gosh. I don't think they showed a release date, but that thing looks fucking amazing, dude.
Did you play the first one?
I did not.
Oh my god, dude! Because that's coming in December, right?
The first one?
Yeah, as a remaster.
A remaster? Oh, I'm going to get it.
Yeah, because it was on. It was a PlayStation Vita game.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
And to this day, it's probably my favorite original PlayStation Vita game. Like, I mean, it doesn't technically do anything special with the Vita necessarily,
right?
But like. First of all, I think the story is really good, and like the whole like strange steampunk world, and like you're like one of the only ones with superpowers thing is like super fucking awesome. Yeah. And then like the whole the whole way the powers work and stuff. But man, shit, if there's a trailer for Gravity Rush 2, I'm so there. Because, like, I'm a huge fan of that
They
game.
showed it off, and like I said, it looked... When I saw it, I caught it in the middle of it. I was like, what the hell is that? And, dude, it looked amazing, dude.
Yeah. I believe it. Because they announced, I think it was at Tokyo Game Show this year, that it wasn't... Well, Sony's basically given up on the Vita. But, which sucks. Because it's a great handheld.
I think it's just going to be... They said no more first-party game. What?
Well, there's still... It's kept alive by indie.
Right. That's an indie channel.
And, like... Because, I mean, like, every fucking indie game comes to that damn thing sooner or later. Like, we just got Super Meat Boy on it and stuff. And... Anyway. But, yeah, no, I'm super stoked for Gravity Rush. But the thing that blew my mind... I mean, I didn't watch anything except for one trailer, and that was the one for No Man's Sky.
Yeah, I caught that. That's how I knew it was on. I caught the No Man. It was in the middle of No Man's Sky trailer. I was like, oh shit.
Because, like, I mean, like that is like, you can basically just say goodbye to me. Like, nothing's getting done. I'm just I'm just gonna plug into that game and then probably just die.
June 2016 is when it come out.
Yeah, I'm super happy about that. I was like, ooh, it's coming out for my birthday. Sweet.
That's dope. Yeah, because that's definitely something to hold us over for the summer.
Dude, it's gonna hold you over forever. Like, if it even has half as much content that is generated as they're claiming, and we're definitely starting to see in videos,
right?
That game is gonna dominate.
If with a game that big, there would be no need for a season pass or DLC content, I don't think.
Yeah, and they don't plan to do that either.
Great.
Either way. Yeah. They said they do plan to support it for sure. But they said that they don't want to do DLC with it because, like, the other thing is, like, it's just 10 dudes that's making that.
Right.
It's 10 fucking dudes. It's so crazy. That is 100% my most.
Can you imagine
game.
that budget? And Sony's backing them full force, and like they are fucking paid, dude. It's only 10 people to split that money against.
Well, that's true.
They're fucking paid. like yo.
Well, my understanding from the Sean Murray. Okay, we need to stop talking about this because we will talk about this shit forever.
It'll be midnight and we haven't even recorded.
Yeah, right.
Like, oh shit.
Okie dokie. Is there any way you can turn your microphone down a little bit? What are you using right now? Your new phone?
Yeah, I'm on my new.
Now you sound louder because I hear a bunch of background noise.
Wow.
Okay.
About now.
That's talk for like a sentence or something.
Trying to get the levels right before we podcast.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
Okay.
Alrighty, sweet. So yeah, I didn't write up really a game plan or anything. So I'll just kick off the show. I'll say joining me. I mean, you know the drill.
Yep.
And then I'll start off by apologizing to the audience for having had no shows in 3 weeks. I've actually got 3 Red Bull codes for each week that we've been gone. And I think unless we can find more people moving forward, it's probably not going to be a weekly show because A, it's really hard to get people together for it,
right,
at least so far. And then B, at least right now, there's not a whole lot going on in Destiny. I mean, it does seem, to Bungie's credit, like there's been something going on every week.
Right.
But, you know, like I'd rather do a long quality show like every other week or even once a month than try to hammer out, you know, a show like Planet Destiny does where they gotta like get guest stars just to get stuff rolling.
Just to get rolling, right?
You know?
Yeah, they have to. Like, I think, at this point, because they're getting money, they're getting paid now. It might not be from Bungie or Activision, but
Well,
they're making money.
I'm sure they're getting advertiser money.
Yeah.
There's no way that podcast doesn't have advertiser money, because Luke Smith has been on it, and they get all the popular Twitchers. So and plus they're a Planet website based, so they're part of a whole other network of those.
And
Planet
it's crazy
Halo.
It's like they just came out of nowhere and just said, "Oh, we're gonna start a podcast." Boom, 60,000 listeners. Like what? Like how?
Yeah, our numbers have been pretty good, but not that good.
Yeah, I'm like, they just came out of nowhere. I mean, granted, they know their shit. I give them that. They know their shit.
Oh, sure, yeah. No, they're definitely not unknowledgeable people. Anyway, let's start this thing. Oh, so I was going to do that introductions. Say where we're gone. Offer out a code in the beginning. I'll try to remember one in the middle and then one in the end. And I'll say that up front. And then also offer out a call to arms to anybody who listens to the show. If they want to email in and they have Skype and a good knowledge of Destiny, they're more than welcome to come onto the show, because we need people. This is our official... Actually, no, that's going to be the title of the show. LFG.
Oh, that's it. That'll be hilarious. What's the name of it? LFG?
Agents of the Nine, a Destiny podcast, episode 4, LFG for podcasters.
It's funny because when you're in the tower, you gotta like if you just sit in the tower and just mows around, there's little dialogues that actually goes along in the tower. If you just listen for it, and it's something that it's funny because K6 gets on the intercom like, calling the attention all Guardians to high level alert. We all need to report to Zavala as soon as possible. Something crazy. I was like, oh man, this is funny. It's funny coming from Cade 6 because he's Cade 6.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let's start this. Quote. Everyone I spoke to agreed on one point. Bungie's senior leadership, including Jason Jones, didn't like what they saw. Some in the studio took issue with the rhythm of progression, which would have shown players all for... Okay, I have to go to the bathroom. I've been holding it in. Cut! I've been holding it in. I'm trying to power through.
I can't hold it anymore! That's been holding... Y'all, you know what? Fuck this. I gotta go.
Okay.
Fuck this. Yo. All right. Okay, Google. I need you to set me an alarm for 7 o'clock.
Okay, 7 a.m. Setting your alarm.
Actually, no.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, Google. I need you to set me an alarm for 6:45.
Okay, 6:45 a.m. Setting your alarm.
Thank you. Oh, crap.
Still there?
Yep.
Sorry that took so long.
Oh, good.
Don't mix energy drinks and then like a coffee shake.
Oh yeah. That sounds like a nightmare in intestines.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah. Okay. Where was I? You still with us? Still awake?
Yeah. Were you taking it from the top of that paragraph, or?
Yeah, I think so. What did I say? Character model. Calling for middle of the help. Supercut. Supercut was bad. I think I fucked up in the middle of that paragraph with a third person familiar. I think.
Yeah, it was like you were going through. One person said it was terrible. Second person, but otherwise, third person. You got through all three, and then right after that is when you like, you fuck this. I gotta use the bathroom.
Yeah.
Somewhere along.
There you go. Cut in. You there?
Yeah. There we go.
That sucks. I'm gonna have to reread that line. It cut out mid.
Damn.
So
Yeah, because
shitty.
I was just, my phone was like how it is now, and it's just up and cut off. Weird.
It sucks. I mean,
When my
it
phone
did
didn't
that.
cut off,
It did
I
that
just-
with your last phone too. I think it must just be the Android version of Skype.
Yeah, that shit sucks. It just sucks. So I usually leave it where it is, so I wouldn't have any problems. But I guess that doesn't help it either. I don't know.
So
Next time,
so are we good? Are we good now, or?
Yeah, we're good.
And what were you saying about next time?
I'm probably gonna run it off my laptop
How come you don't run it off your laptop?
because it's a hassle. Because my laptop, I'm just being lazy. My laptop screen cracked, so I have it
Oh.
HD. I have an HDMI cord connected to my television, so I just use my laptop as a keyboard, and so everything comes up on like this big 30-inch screen. So I'm not sure if the sound is going to come through the television or if it's going to come through the laptop. It's probably going to come through the television. And
Well, don't you have headphone jacks on your? Oh, because you're outputting it in HDMI.
so unless there's a box like a converter that would enable me to plug an HDMI cord into the box and it goes into the television with a headphone jack, then I don't know. I don't think they make that. I think I just made that up. That'd be nice if it did. But that's why. It's time for me to get a new laptop anyway.
Sorry, I'm so quiet. I'm texting Killbot because Killbot's not coming.
Oh shit. God damn.
This is very frustrating.
Yeah. I understand the pain. What happened?
Well, so the reason we did today, right, is because he's like, well, I could do Tuesday. And I was like, okay, let's do Tuesday, which is what, the third week in a row we've rescheduled to try to get with Killbot.
Right.
So 3 weeks, that's a little frustrating to me. Especially because he's always on fucking Destiny. Like, it's like, come on, dude.
Right.
I know you don't work that often because you're a part-time music teacher. Fucking, I get when you're at your girlfriend's because you're in a different fucking city.
Right.
And you know, like I'm a patient person, I think, you know, and I'm probably more annoyed than maybe I normally am because I'm really tired because I stayed up till 3 a.m. playing Halo 5. So like my fuse is really short right now.
Right, that would do it. That definitely would do it.
So
it's all
tired,
good.
painful, body failing. Worth it though.
Yeah, I heard it's tough as shit. So I'm probably gonna go in there on Destiny mode and say, you know what? Hell, we big boys. Let's do heroic mode and I let it just whoop my ass.
Oh, you talking about hard mode?
Yeah, for Halo. So because I heard that heroic mode in this Halo is a bitch.
Well, I feel like it'll be easier, at least if you're playing by yourself, because you've got 3 other teammates that you can order around.
Well, they say I was listening to Gamertag Radio, and the way Paris described it, he was like, I think this game was intentionally designed for you to run 4-player co-op because it is ridiculously hard to solo and go through that campaign with 3 other AIs. Because sometimes the AIs, they just don't do what you need them to do. And yeah, he says it's probably a lot better experience if you run it with 3 other people, because you can communicate and devise strategies and all type of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've only played the first 2 missions, so I'm not. It's not really enough for me to see whether or not the AI can handle stuff.
What mode are you going in? You going in heroic or legendary or?
No, I went in normal.
Okay.
It's actually a funny story. So like, I was waiting for it to go live, so I decided to replay the last mission of Halo 4. Since I hadn't played a Halo game in fucking forever. And it was so weird because it's like did you ever play Halo 4?
I muscled through it. I muscled through it. It's not my favorite.
Oh, that's right. I remember from that other podcast where you were the one who didn't like it so much.
Yeah, it's not my favorite.
I still like it more than Reach.
I give it that. I liked Reach.
Like the only thing good in Reach was
it was visually beautiful though. It was probably one of the most gorgeous looking Halo games I've ever played.
Reach or 4? I think 4 was better looking.
I liked at the time Reach was the most beautiful Halo game because I didn't like ODST at all.
Oh
ODST was a joke. I thought ODST was a joke.
I liked ODST. So.
It was like, it was a great little sub story, but I was just like, I don't know. So by the time 3 came out,
well,
3 wasn't
ODST was supposed to have been just DLC, and then Microsoft was like, "No, let's put a retail package on it."
Right now, see, if it would have came out and been presented that way, cool.
Sure,
I understand, but not as a full-fledged game.
I mean, you even look at the cover and it says Halo 3 ODST.
Right.
It doesn't just say Halo ODST or whatever. But yeah.
That is cool. I like Master Chief.
Yeah, no. I love Chief. I've read the books and stuff. Which is actually probably the coolest part about Halo 5 so far. I don't know if you ever read the first book.
I have not. I haven't read any of the books. That's the thing. I went into Halo straight off the Xbox.
There's a shit ton of books, I'll tell you what. But that first book, I will honestly say is one of my favorite science fiction books ever written.
Ooh, better than Ender's Game? Because Ender's Game was pretty good.
I tell you what, if you loved Ender's Game, you would love the very first Halo book, Fall of Reach.
Okay.
I think it's as good as Ender's Game.
Okay.
And I love Orson Scott Card, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So,
Ender's Game was really fucking good.
And, I mean, I'll be honest, it feels like Ender's Game because it's the origin of Master Chief and training as like a 6-year-old to be a Spartan and getting genetically enhanced, and like how he gets to be who he is, and meets Cortana and Dr. Catherine Halsey. And the thing about that book, though, is he has a team, Blue Team, and there's 3 other members of his team. And in Halo 5, you finally get to fucking see them in the game with him. And for me, as a Halo lore guy, I mean, I haven't read all the books because at this point there's too many of them. I can't keep up. But like, especially for that first book, that's a prequel to the original Halo. It's how they get to Halo. Like when Halo 5 starts off, in the second mission where you finally get to play as Chief after the first mission, you're introduced to Locke. Mm-hmm. And you see the dialogue between Chief and these things. Like for me, having read that book many, many times since it came out with the original Halo back in 2001.
Yeah.
It's like it never skipped a beat, you know. Since even
that's good.
Like if they feel like at home with Master Chief and stuff, which is amazing because like, and the thing about the Chief that's different is he is a little more colder than the other ones, even in the book, like all the way back there, story-wise. Mm-hmm. And so, like, his team is definitely colder than these newer Spartans from Halo 4 and stuff. But they're just a little bit more human. And, like, there's one of the very first lines that, like, one of his team members is saying, and they're, like, talking in the background as, like, Chief is flying this carrier for them, and they're like, "You think the Chief's okay?" Even back in the day, he never ran this many missions without a break.
Right.
You know, and it's like, oh damn, you know. So I don't know. It gets my juices flowing. I like it.
Now, did the book come out after the games, or was it the games? Was it the games before the book? I'm sorry, was it the book before the games?
You mean like, are they following a series of books?
Well, did the Halo game come out first, or was the novel out first, and then the game was created after the novel?
The first novel and the game were created simultaneously.
Okay.
The book, timeline-wise, actually did come out a month before the game did in 2001.
Okay.
But it was developed at the same time.
So that means they probably got with the developers and the writers of the game, mm-hmm. and then wrote the story pre-synopsis to the game.
Yeah, because the books are canon for the game. You know? It's like the Star Wars stuff before Disney, like all those extended universe stuff.
Right.
It's the same thing with Halo.
I got some Star Wars stuff that tells us it's pre-Star Wars, post, maybe even pre-KOTOR, but it is Old Republic. Uh-huh. And it tells the story of, I got Exar Kun, I got Darth. Oh, man. Okay, so if you play both KOTOR and KOTOR 2?
I played KOTOR 1. I never beat 2.
Okay, how far did you get with 2? Did you play Korriban? Because KOTOR... See, the way KOTOR 2 is designed, mm-hmm. that's how Destiny should have been designed. You can pick your planets, but at the end, the story, it all comes to this one last planet. You have to get there. But you can get there however you want to get there. Okay. So I always chose to pick Korriban last because I hated Korriban, you know. So it was fitting.
Wasn't Korriban in the first KOTOR?
It is in the first one. When you go back in the second KOTOR too.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's okay. So you probably haven't got really far in 2.
No, my problem with that, and it's the same problem that developer has had, because it wasn't done by BioWare, it was done by Obsidian.
Obsidian, yeah, did too.
I played the Xbox version, and it was glitchy as fuck.
And yet, it still got Game of the Year. How about that?
Their games do get Game of the Year, even with all their glitches. It's fucking insanity. I'm honestly hoping, because KOTOR came out on like iPads and stuff like remastered.
Oh, it's really good on the phone. It is a little glitchy on the phone, but Obsidian didn't do the port. It was a different developer.
Yeah, it was Aspire. They've been doing ports for years. But
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping that with, Star Wars Fever about to hit absurd levels,
Mhm.
that they remaster KOTOR 2.
Oh, I would love to. I would
'Cause,
love
like,
a KOTOR 3.
They said that they're doing that.
Well, you know what
Like
my idea for KOTOR 3
year.
was? You know what my idea with KOTOR 3 was? The story. I had this in my head years ago. Something to piece together even before. I had my own plot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, you never really. It never really told the story. Something to piece together: KOTOR 2 and Darth Maul, and to bridge that together. So, like I always had this synopsis in my head as if Darth Maul. But see, that would kill the whole Star Wars timeline as it is now. So, Darth Maul. What happened was there was a war that raged out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so prior to that, there was an imbalance in the Force, okay? And there was a dark Jedi in this sense where so you haven't played 2, so I don't want to spoil it. But there was a dark Jedi that sensed this and sensed the imbalance in the Force, just as almost like the God, what's the word I'm looking for? The pre-mythology of how they sense Luke. Well, it wasn't Anakin that was supposed to have been the chosen one. It was actually Luke, but they thought Anakin was the chosen in the prophecies, right?
Sure.
So the whole point of KOTOR 3 to me was that okay, so this dark Jedi sensed this imbalance in the Force, and he sensed it was coming from these 2 kids who were very strong in the Force. They were 2 brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So in order to get these 2 younglings, because the Jedi sensed it as well. So it was a race to get to the 2 kids that could have been the balance of the Force. So the Dark Jedi stages a war, kills the parents of the kids, makes it seem that the Jedi were the reason for it, brings the kids up, one of them being Maul, before he was Maul, So one of them raises the kids. Well, they raise the kids within the Sith. The Dark Jedi, he becomes like their guardian. Eventually, they look to him as their father because the war raged out. They were like 4. They were like ages 6 and ages 4. They were kids, really, really young kids. So he trains them. He raises them in the ways of the Sith, and they become these 2 powerful Jedis in the Sith. So what happens is, like, I always imagine in KOTOR 3, and it's broken down into a whole trilogy of it. KOTOR 3 being them as kids, KOTOR 4 being as them raised in the Sith. 5 becomes them being the Sith Lords. Mm-hmm. And then somewhere along that way, the 2 brothers, one realizes the truth that their father lied to them and killed their biological parents. The other has been lost and been raised and bathed in the Sith for so long. He's blind to the fact. So that's where Maul splits up and his brother split. But see, it would have totally blew the timeline out unless you just create a different story for the brother. Mm-hmm. So, but the crazy thing is, when I saw the trailer for E3 this year, and they showed that same exact synopsis for Knights of the Old Republic for the PC version, I'm like, oh shit, this is the story that I've been thinking of for fucking years. And I was like, yo, 2 brothers raising the Sith, one betrays their father that raised.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that. I saw that trailer too, and I was like, man, I feel like I can picture it for some reason.
And when I saw like, oh my gosh, this is the story I had in my head for like 5 years, yo. That's crazy. That's crazy. So that made me happy to see that. But unfortunately, it's a PC and not on console.
I almost kind of wish that game was on console.
Yeah, I do too.
Especially because I read a thing today that said that this expansion that I guess is hitting like tomorrow or some shit makes it the BioWare game that it should have been 3 years ago or however long it's been out. Apparently, apparently it's like they're Taken King type thing, and it like reworks fucking everything.
Yeah, because when I saw it, I was like, "Oh shit!" Like that trailer looked amazing, and that storyline was.
Their trailers always look amazing.
Right, that's true. But that storyline got me. I was like, "Oh, this is what I've been thinking of." It's been in my head for years, but it's always been the story of Darth Maul and how he became who he was, but his brother came and became a Jedi. You know, it gave him forgiveness, and he had to work his way to become a Jedi Master and be in the Jedi Order. You know, and so, but then that would have killed everything. That means he would have been involved in episode 1, episode 2, and 3, and all of that. You know, so
sure,
that's where it would have went sideways. But that was the main synopsis. They've been raised in the Sith. One betrays the father, the other finds his own way through the light. You know, so.
Yep.
But yeah.
Alrighty. We should wrap this up because I
don't know how we got onto that.
Yeah, fuck.
That's funny. Don't know how we
are not good at staying on track because I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking we just tried to restart the show we were doing, and it's 20 minutes later. It's 20 fucking minutes later.
Like, this didn't work out right. Not like we planned. Nope.
God damn.
Not at all.
Alrighty, let's finish this, and then I guess. Is there anything really important you want to talk about after I finish this article?
Iron Banner stuff. Okay. I guess we can hold out on the festival stuff because that actually just kicked off. Unless we want to briefly talk about that, but mostly Iron Banner stuff.
I think we should briefly talk about it because this episode's going to go out this week, and I have no idea when our next episode is. Like it could be a month from now. It could be.
So we probably should talk about. Did you get a chance to run the heart rate?
Fuck no! I told you everybody ditched me. And then I waited around and did some stuff, and I did some stuff with Rain, my clanmate, and then he ditched me for like an hour and completed the hard raid with some other people, I guess.
Oh shit!
I haven't done it, but at the same time, though, I went online and I read what they changed to it, and I was like, anyway, we can save that for the podcast. All right, let's just do this. All right.
Yep.
Cut in.